Yes.
Pre-camp.
And
I'll
to
say
state
it
it
for
for
the
the
committee.
committee. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Taylor.
Okay, great. Thank you, CDM McGuire, for coming to the interview today. We're looking forward to it. To the committee, I did pass out, same thing I sent around. You have a ranking form. Everybody has 2 of these, one for each of our interviews today. And also some sample questions. Some of them will probably be answered during the interview as we go through, but what we'll do is after the 30 minutes are up, we'll start at either end of the table. We'll probably start with Lisa and work our way down. You could ask one of the questions or something that's not on the sheet. It's totally up to you. It's kind of a free-form type interview, so it's really up to CDM McGuire. You have 45 minutes. Try to keep your presentation to 30, and then we'll do 15 of Q&A. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Great, thank you. First of all, thanks for inviting us to be here tonight. I'm Mark Sicoscio, principal with CDR McGuire and Associates. I did put an agenda in front of everybody, just to have it. If you want to find it, that's fine. You don't necessarily need it. There's no test at the end, but we'll go through introductions, sort of roles and responsibilities, the team, then sort of project understanding, the schedule, the site, programming, sort of all those kinds of things. Potentially talk a little bit about budget. So first and foremost, I'm pretty informal. You can stop me at any time, ask me a question. If you don't understand something, certainly interrupt me, and we'll go from there. So let's just start with our introductions. Maybe we can all get introduced. That would be great.
I'm Robin Dyer, the site engineer.
I'm Steve Guglielmo. I'd be the project architect, and I'm also a principal with the firm.
I'm Mark Plant with Building Engineering Resource. I'll stand up so you can see me. And I'm owner of the company with BER. We'll be providing mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection design services.
Do you guys know?
Sure.
Taylor McDonald, Pomeroy Associates.
Lisa Pacheco, Board of Selectmen and Chair of the committee.
Mary Brown, and I'm a member of the Police Facilities Committee.
Charles Sullivan, I'm a selectman.
My name is Jack Healy. I'm the town administrator.
Ben Levesque, from the police department.
Carlton Abbott, Chief of Police.
Paul Sadik, member of the Building Committee.
Mark Fonashire from the police department.
Thank you. Great. Nice to meet you all. I understand the 30 minutes and the 15, and again, if you have any questions as we go along, please interrupt me. Well, just a little bit of history on why I'm standing before you tonight. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, after about a year of negotiations, CDR McGuire and my firm, Sicoscio Associates, merged. So we merged a year ago and formed sort of, it's a reverse merger. We are part of CDR McGuire now. So I'm on the board of directors of CDR McGuire. Our firm, Sicoscio Associates, does a lot of public safety work as well. For now, we're running both firms at the same time. This is a CDR McGuire project, not to confuse anything, but it comes up. Just want to make sure that, as I said, I'm a director in CDR McGuire. Everything runs through that. We've worked with Pomeroy, Taylor, and Rick in the past, so they can sort of allay any issues that might happen with that. It's a very transparent situation. Just about the team. The one thing nice about CDR McGuire is that we have a lot of in-house support. Robin does our civil, as she said. We also have structural, which is Jatan, is our structural engineer. So we carry structural, civil, architectural in-house. So really good coordination. We work really well together. Our external consultants are Mark Plant with BER for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and cost estimating, which is C2E. At this point, I'll turn it over to Steve and talk a little bit about your program.
Thank you. First thing that we would do we want to sit down with you and come up with a program for the building. Now, I understand there hasn't been an assessment done to this point as far as a needs assessment. So what we would do, the first thing we would do is sit down with you and go over your needs. I looked up some of the statistics. There's the International Association of Chiefs of Police that put out some statistical data for how large a police department is based on the population of the city or town. Freetown has about 9,200 residents, and it hasn't really risen much in the last 10 years. I guess it's gone up a couple of hundred in the last 10 years. And based on the stats that are put out, cities and towns that are 10,000 to 25,000, the ratio of police officers to per 1,000 would be a 2, and you fall right in that right now. You've got, I think, 19, is it 19 sworn officers?
Well, we're authorized for that, yeah.
Okay. And, because that's where you would fall, right in that range, for 19 sworn officers for that size city or town. And that fluctuates a little bit. I know some of the neighboring towns, they're around maybe 10,000, 11,000 residents. And it also translates to how large of a building that you need. I know, is it Cushnet that they have a almost 12,000 square foot building, and their population's about 11,000. So, and we project it out maybe 20 to 25 years. So you project out your population, whether it's going to grow, how much it's going to grow in the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And that's what we design for. You don't want to design a building for you today if the town's growing and the population's projected to be higher, sometime down the road. We did the same thing in Cranston when we did the Cranston Police Station. We designed it for 25 years out. They had 143, I believe, officers sworn, and we designed it for, it was like 175, which is projected out to be 25 years out. So, but a lot goes into it. I mean, the building is actually, it's going to be your building. A lot of input from you goes into this building. We just simply put the facts down on paper, and we come up with a scheme for you, but it's going to be your building. It comes from your ideas and your visions, okay? Some of the questions that we would want to know up front, and I know a couple of them were answered in the RFP. As far as sworn officers, you have 5 reserve officers, but we need to know how many men, how many women, how many civilian staff are working at the station. I know you have a dispatch size of 4 full-time, 7 part-time. And with that, we have to investigate whether there's a consolidation thought down the road, whether you're going to consolidate either with fire, with your dispatch, or maybe another city or town, in neighboring cities or towns that may want to consolidate and make one dispatch area, because we've seen that in the past. Whether you're going to have an emergency management center in your building, you have to consider that. Whether you're going to do training on-site or off-site. Detention cells, how many detention cells do you need? How many vehicles do you currently have? Do you want covered parking? Do you have vehicle maintenance on-site? All these questions have to be flushed out so we can actually put together a comprehensive plan to come up with the proper size building that you're going to need. And will CALEA accreditation come into play? And that's important because it's not so much with the design of the building, but there's a lot of community interaction with the CALEA. So maybe you may want to consider doing a community room in the building. So things like that. So you need to take that into consideration if you're going after the CALEA accreditation. Okay, we went through that with the Cranston Police Station too. And then once we get these answered, what we would do, we would sit down with each department head, and we number each department, and we have a checklist. Okay, we interview every department head. So we go through the office of the chief, the patrol division, detectives, training, civilian staff, detention, public access, storage, vehicles. So we give them all a number. We come up with the square footage and the space requirement. So this we have to come up with this before we can actually put the building together. So this is something that we do. We have to sit down and interview the chief and all your department heads. So that's all part of the programming piece, okay? I just have some of the CALIA requirements, but I'm sure you're familiar with that. But other than that, that's where we start.
So we were curious, the 15,000 square feet, was that derived from something? Was it just right now, just sort of a placeholder at this point?
A little bit of both. We've visited several police stations. We did do a feasibility study, so we had some things that we wanted to go by, and with the input from the chief of police, we felt that would be around where we would want to be.
Okay. Well, doing all this programming would actually flush it out and determine what you actually need.
It's very similar to the station that we just did in Millis, which is that top station. It just opened a few months ago. So that's, in Millis, they have 8,000, population of 8,000. It's an 11,000 square foot facility, full community room, training area, dispatch, obviously, so the whole, we'd love for you to, I'd love to take a tour at some point. It's a similar, one of the reasons we sort of showed it off.
Is that on the left side, Mark?
On the right.
Right top?
Right top.
The far board. The top picture is a rendering, and the picture to the far right is the actual photograph of the
Oh,
building.
okay.
So rendering on the top, photograph to the right. But it'd be a very similar size. Nice sort of sister station if you want to visit. We'd offer that to you as
Sorry,
well.
what year was that building built?
We just opened
Just
in
opened.
6 months ago.
Okay, awesome.
Where is it in relation to the old station? Is it co-located anywhere?
So
near?
the old station became the fire station.
Okay,
And so
all right.
so it's the fire station, then there's the retail block, and then the new police
Okay.
station. So it's worked out well in that regard. So we're going to talk a little bit about the site now.
So one of the first things that I end up doing is the basic GIS stuff, bringing it in, see what site constraints we have on here, like your well radiuses on your at the elementary school here, wetland areas, buffers on those, because in many of those situations it ends up where it doesn't work. I brought in the two concepts that were in the RFI, and obviously this is a wetland area here, so, and that would be the buffer zone, so the 100-foot buffer we try to keep on as much as possible.
So that, not to interrupt, but
Yep.
just because I don't think it's explained anywhere, the library is obviously a future building. You're going to co-locate these at some point, so maybe
Correct.
it's not the biggest driver, but you obviously want to keep it in the planning process, correct?
Right.
So
It-
we're looking at that whole big picture, sorry.
Based on the buildings that they work out, I have to work on site design, parking, handicap accessibility for the parking areas. In the case of Millis, the building was already pretty much designed when I got it and had to do the design of the stormwater at that point. So it's better to be in it at the beginning.
So Robin, if when you start, or I guess when you do the site plan for the police station, would you be keeping in mind the possibility of adding on maybe some storm drainage from the library, or making a,
Absolutely.
making sure everything's large enough to add another building on that site?
Yes, actually, I would, my idea would be to, this is full build on site, you guys, this is what you intend on doing, we want to be prepared for it ahead of time. So there isn't a question about it afterwards.
Yep, okay.
So I think some of the other parts of that even the library in this design also is part of, it's in the well radius on both of those, so it's all part of the site consideration that we have to move as we move forward. Any questions so far?
Am I understanding correctly that the wellhead protection area of the school interferes with some of the drawings that have been sketched in?
Yeah, so, yeah, the police or this corner, this is the police, this corner's clean.
Yeah.
As soon as you move in either direction, you start to,
Yeah,
Not-
wetlands
not-
or
right.
wellhead.
wetlands
protection.
here, that's a
Yeah.
no. In this version, you're in the wellhead, you can be in the wellhead, but it's just additional permitting and
Right.
it's not preferred,
And
obviously.
And we can do some work within the 100. Generally, there's usually a 25-foot no-touch zone.
Yeah.
And we try to keep it minimal as much as possible.
I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
Is the location of the police station, the one that was first put up, is that in wet area? That is not?
No.
There's no wet area there?
Correct.
Okay.
It's the library that, right?
Yeah, right.
we're not-
There's a buffer, 100-foot buffer, but you're outside of that as well.
So you got a nice clean site for the police station. And really the question comes is how much does the library drive the rest of the project?
It doesn't.
Yeah, it's not part of this project.
Yeah.
I know it's not,
Yeah.
but obviously we always want to be looking forward.
We have to think long
Right,
range.
exactly,
About other buildings possibly being built on this parcel.
exactly.
So, I mean, taking care of the drainage and all of that, but also taking care of the aesthetics and what it looks like, because it'll be driving force for the other buildings.
Absolutely.
What about the middle of the site down the bottom?
In here?
That, no, over that way, yeah. Upgrading it from Chase, down the bottom middle of the page, yeah.
That's
Okay.
all,
That's all well radius, because there's actually 2 wells.
So that circle encompasses,
This is 500-foot well radius on well
Yeah.
number 2.
2, and that's
And this is
well number
500 well number 1.
okay.
And how much was the radius, how much is the area from the well that we should be, is it 500 feet, with 500 feet or just 100 feet?
You have a zone 1 that goes out 200 feet,
Okay.
so then,
You can't build on
which you're
Yeah,
not,
snow built.
we're not gonna mess with. But we have some leeway in the 500, but
Mhm.
you wanna minimize that as much as possible, much like you would in wetland areas.
Excluding the well issue,
Mhm.
excluding the wetlands, is there a place on that property that you're looking at that, where you could put a library? And not impact on the police station?
that. Right now, it would always be within the wellhead radius.
That's it, nothing further this way?
You mean down,
No?
no, this
Going
is,
down Chase
Towards the
Road,
wetlands.
yeah, I don't know how far do you guys go this way?
all the way to the highway
Yeah,
department?
you can see the whole site
So you probably would have room.
on here,
It would be quite a ways away from
The other side.
yeah, that side. The other side's easier to see.
Sorry. So down here,
Yeah, you're out of the wetlands there.
yeah, there's a little bit of potential wetlands in this area, but so you
Right.
probably could grab some land up in this area. So, obviously, part of our scope would be to help you locate that, as part of the work that we do. We're not gonna do any engineering, I understand on it, but we're very big on understanding of the bigger picture and understanding that, what drives the project down the road is extremely important. So we want to know as much information as we can as we step into the project together, because it is very much a team effort, as you know. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the schedule, just so sort of we understand, sort of, if you want to talk about what Steve was talking about, earlier on, this is actually updated from the proposal as well. So if we started programming in May, so there's a pretty big effort that's got to go on with that programming effort. It's a 2 to 3, could be a longer process in terms of depending on availability of people. We can move it quite quickly. It's really, again, who's available, how much time is available, how much, if you've done a feasibility study, maybe you're further along than I think, or understand at least at this point. But we really want your input. It's really important. If you look at our work across the board, I think you'll notice there's not one consistent style. You're the style. This building becomes your building, doesn't become anyone at this table's building. We'll give you all the expertise. We'll make sure you don't make any mistakes. But we get driven from your inspiration. We want to hear what you guys want to say. We want, do you want a modern building? You want a colonial? You want there's all, I have my ideas. We'll certainly be giving you our ideas, but we want to build this collectively together from right today. That's why we're starting, I know some of this is sort of dry, but it's sort of big. What we're trying to do is build the base, and then it explodes out. So, one would think you have a lot of time, and based on your mid-February special town meeting, you can see the calendar gets filled up rather quickly. So if we spend basically May doing the rest of May, early June doing programming, which is that 3 to 4 week time frame, we get a program signed off so we can start design. We start design in mid to end of June, go through July. So that's concept drawings, so it's pretty basic. We're going to be looking at floor plans and general elevations, sections, all the site stuff, where the problems are. And then design development, which is the further development of that. More detail, we'll start to talk more about finishes, more about tightening up the spaces. We're in towards mid-September at this point. And then construction drawings for about 3.5 months, which is pretty realistic. Puts you out, we'd have to be bidding this, the way I understand it, the way I see the schedule, right after the first of the year. So this is an early 2018 bid. It's a 5-week bidding process, basically, to get through the file sub bids and then the bid. It's roughly 5 weeks. If you do that, now we're in mid-February already. And then the 45 days for the override, and then obviously this isn't, we can start this. It's actually starting at a great time, but I think you can sort of see through this piece that there's enough time to do it. We can get it done in the time frame, but it starts to squish pretty quickly. So if you delay, at this front end, and I don't know how critical mid-February is. Is that a set in stone date? Is that set by charter? Is that?
No, it's not set. I think that we've been working on this for, 6, 7 months already. I think that we kind of have our ducks in a row, and we kind of know more or less which direction we want to go in. So I don't know if the programming is going to take all that long. I'm sure that the chief has his ideas already set on paper.
Yeah, I think we've I'm familiar with the IACP, the whole booklet, et cetera, on building a station. I think we've pretty much identified all of the elements that we need in the station. It's just a question, as you alluded to, of what are population projections, how many male, female officers, how much room, does one detective or 2 detectives need, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as the elements, I think we're pretty squared away on that. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So we'll work with you. I mean, we know how to program the building, but again, what are the unique pieces of the building that you may want? You may want something that somebody else doesn't want. I don't know what that is yet, but as we meet, talk, discuss, review all that, then we'll pull that information out.
And I would think, even though there's feasibility study information, you'd want to take a look at that and spend some time, reviewing it, and obviously apply your own, techniques there to make sure, you're comfortable with that as the designer.
Yeah, I mean, as an example, we're working on a fire station up in Dudley. We got the preliminary reports when we were brought on, and we looked at it, we totally flipped the station. So they were renovating to keep the trucks inside. It made no sense, so we flipped it. The committee was extremely happy. We'll always challenge you. You know, I'm a pretty easy guy to get along with. I mean, we have a lot of fun as we work it out, but if we think you're not doing something the right way, and I know if we're not doing it the right way, you'll tell us as well, but it's important to have a really good working relationship. And, you know, one of the things that sort of, I'll let Mark talk and I'll sort of wrap up, talk a little bit about the most important part. We got to keep you warm, dry, and cool, right?
Yeah, we hope to. Just quickly, I thought you skipped me tonight.
I would never skip
you. I'm feeling great, you know, I missed my slot. But my first question, just quickly, is do we have natural gas out here?
No.
No.
That's all right. Well, there goes one of our options. So one of the first things we're going to do right away is a senior mechanical engineer is going to get involved and look at our options for the site. Look at the system choices we have. Of course, you've all been dealing with existing buildings, maybe some in rough shape, but maybe some newer ones around town. So you've seen some systems. You may have some ideas or things you do and don't like. But mechanical engineer will do he'll do an energy model right away, and then we'll use that as our baseline to see how we can improve that in system choices, so that we can look at our life cycle analysis of what we want to do. So we want to look at the systems, look at the upfront costs, look at the maintenance and operations, and look at the energy consumption. So, and then we kind of weigh all that, and then we weigh that against the cost of the system, the cost, you know, the available dollars to the project, and how it affects the budget. Mechanicals, you know, one of your biggest components, so it's critical that we make a good decision, and we make the right decision for your size of facility. And operations, you know, very important. You know, I've seen projects where control systems are too complicated for the size of the system, so for the building and the operators. So it's important that we understand exactly who's going to be operating that building and what the sophistication is, and what kind of knowledge and what kind of technical people are around. A lot of times it's best to just kind of keep it simpler. Simpler is better. A lot of single point of use controls. So, but in a project like this where natural gas is not an option, I'm probably going to say right away, a system we use a lot today, Taylor's seen it, is the VRF system. It's very common, we've had very, very good success with this system. And it's a heat pump system, so it's all electric. So if there's an opportunity for any solar, it's high efficiency, all electric. It's not like the old days in the 1970s with electric radiators and stuff. But that's going to be one of our choices. We actually use it very frequently today, and it has a lot of great benefits to it. But if there's opportunities for solar on the site or around, that might help, you know, offset operational costs. Maybe there's some dollars, maybe there's some federal funds or monies that can be, you know, looked at to help, and that'll help reduce your energy bills. So those are all things.
Mark, if you wouldn't mind just explaining that VRF system, because it seems to be the trend now, and
Yeah.
the last 4 or 5 buildings I've done, that's the system we've gone with, and it's very, very easy to control.
Right.
The comfort level is amazing throughout the entire space, and so just explain how that works a little
All
bit.
right, I'll do my best. I'm an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
So it is all electric, but basically it's a heat pump system. So you're getting heating and cooling out of the same system at the same time, as opposed to having a boiler with hot water and cooling equipment. You can get cooling and heating at the same time. So the refrigerant is the median. So it's somewhere in the building where you need heat, and somewhere you've got cooling, it takes the heat and it transfers it to the other side where you need it. So that's the efficiency in the system. It's in these swing months where you've got, like now, you're going to have a time in the day, certain times where you're on the sun side and they need cooling. Well, the other side of the building, they're cool, they want heat. So that's where we get the savings. So it's a refrigerant-based system, and that's, in my simple terms, how to explain it. One of the mechanical engineers will give you all the theory and bring you a bunch of diagrams and show you, but it's more than we all need to know. But the bottom line is you can get a lot of individual control
a lot of zones is a better way of saying it. So you can break the zones down small, and they all have their own thermostats. So you have better control, and you can create more of them. Different types of systems that you've seen in the buildings like this, they're big, what we call packaged rooftop units. So when they come on, there's one thermostat, and it serves a large areas, so everybody's fighting over the one thermostat. The VRF has been phenomenal in helping us provide a much better level of comfort and control for the users, and it's really simple to use. I mean, you're just flipping the switch, you go to heating or cooling. I need cooling now, you gotta get it. And so there's no worrying about what mode the system is in, and what time of year it is. Oh, we got to flip the system, or we got to get the mechanical guys down and flip the system and switch over, and oh, we can't get cooling now because we're in heating mode. And those are complications from older systems, but today, and we've done quite a few with you folks, so I know I never really hear any complaints these days. It just is the way to go. And what we've seen cost-wise in a lot of our projects is cost is there, so a little bit higher than the cheapest systems, let's say middle of the road, but the results are phenomenal. So that's probably going to be our front runner anyway. And we can. The other thing is we can bring you to a facility up in Middleborough, and they'll show you exactly how the system runs. I think Mitsubishi has a show facility we did on a recent project down at Sandwich, and they brought the members there, and it was fantastic. It was really very informative, and no questions when you leave there how it's going to work. Thank you, Tom.
So I know my time is up, so in summary, it's like, why us? And my theory tonight was that we're trying to get to know each other, sort of show you a little bit of the process. And a lot of times we show a lot of pretty pictures, and we've been through all that. Hopefully you've looked at our qualifications, so that is beyond us. We really want you to get a little taste on how we work tonight, even though it's a short amount of time we spend together. I can't impress upon you as much as I can anymore is that this building will become your building, our building together. I was once asked, what's your favorite building? And my favorite building is, and not to be corny, is the one that everybody is happy with, right? One of the criticisms of architects in general is that we impose our will on you. I love what I'm doing. I've done this for 30 years. Steve and I have been together for a long time. We keep our company at medium size. I like to be involved with projects. Certainly Taylor can attest to that. We keep the company at a size. One of the reasons McGuire spun off or combined us together was that they didn't want to really, it's a much bigger company. They didn't want to deal with sort of that hands-on, personal touch. I'll stay involved with the project. You'll be seeing the people here are the people you'll see throughout the project. We didn't bring all the pretty faces, right? It's one of the lines. But we really mean that. We don't do 100 projects a year. Every project gets personal attention. We stay with it from now until the end. My father started our company 43 years ago, and one of the things he said was his best compliment was when his clients become his friends. And you get what I mean about that. Not that we're all going to go out to dinner together, but at the end of the day, you build a relationship, and it lasts forever. I mean, I get calls from clients. I've had clients for 20 years, and I get calls from clients from 30 years ago. I need this, I need that, and you service it. So we're not just a one-stop quick shop, in and out, one of 100. You're going to be a special project in our portfolio for the next 2 years, and we'd be really excited to work with you and build a great police station together. So with that, I'll stop talking and let you ask any questions.
Great, thank you.
You all set?
I'll go at the end.
Okay.
I'll let you guys.
So, everybody's gonna come forward with their presentations, and we'll get a feel for each company and each firm as they come in, but what do you think sets you apart from any of the other firms, and what can you offer us that's different than any of the other firms?
Well, I think I was alluding to that just in that sort of closing, that you're one of a few projects with us. I think that's really important. And you work with principals, so you'll be working with Steve and I, and then our support staff. We attend the meetings. We're there every time. We're there throughout the project. We make decisions quickly because of that. You're not dealing with a staff person that then has to come back to me, or then my boss, not that, I'm making this up, but, up the ladder, and you can't get decisions made. That's important during the design. It's also important during the construction. We have support staff, but we're intimately involved, as well as Steve, depending on which part of the project it is, so that decisions will be made quickly and efficiently, so.
So this team right here, how many projects do you have right now, this team? Would this be the only one?
Not the only one, no, but basically, you'd be between, I can tell you, in the architectural division, we have a couple of big projects under construction, a police station, a big school, the whole office. So I can explain it better the way the office usually has. We usually have a sort of a $15, $20 million project, 4 or 5 of these size projects, and then a bunch of smaller ones that sort of fill in between. So you're one of a half a dozen in that mix.
All different stages, though.
Yep.
Some are just beginning design, some of them are just ending construction. So it's a mixture.
Thank you.
Can you talk about, a little bit about any other police stations that you've done?
Sure. As I mentioned, the one in Millis, we just finished. It was completed 6 months ago. We're just in the process of completing a station in Smithfield, which happens to be my hometown, so I really have to pay attention to that one. It's a 22,000 square foot station. Again, sort of similar, it's bigger, I understand, but a lot of similarities to the size of the station that's here as well. So we've done a lot of police stations over the years.
Any locally?
I'm sorry?
Any local ones from here?
Not in the perimeter, I guess. Millis, I'm not sure what else that. McGuire's done some others. I haven't touched them, so it wouldn't be fair to really say that we sort of worked on them.
I have a question. How would you bring the police staff into the design process? What do you do there?
So we are as inclusive as you want to be. So quite often what we'll do is early on during programming, and Steve was talking about, we'll do an all-staff. Bring everybody in. We do this all the time. Just invite everybody in if you want to do it. We spend several hours with everybody. Give us your ideas. You're going to get 15 bad ideas. You're going to get 15 decent ideas. You might get 2 really, really good ideas. And don't forget the cuff rail in there, whatever. Just, we probably know it. I'm not going to, but there's 2 things that happens with that. One, they feel vested in the building. Because we're going to do what they say, and if they don't, we need to give them an answer. So if they want, the jacuzzi always comes up, right? So everybody wants a jacuzzi in their office, so it comes up and we sort of laugh about it. But you have to take serious, and we can help you, as well as your command staff is going to sort of understand that this is brought down. We do surveys, if you like. We can be as inclusive as you want to be. A lot of clients don't want to be inclusive. We stress that. We think it's more important to include people. And with the size of your staff, we can certainly do it, and we welcome it.
Can you describe a situation where you had an issue or a problem on a project and how you overcame it?
Good question. So first of all, I'll set it this way, not that we don't have problems. We don't have a lot of problems. We've never, in 43 years of the company, we've never been sued. So we've never, ever let a project get to that level. We went to mediation once with a GC, and we won the mediation with the client. And I said to the client, I said, we'll do the mediation for free. If we win, I want to get paid. If we lose, it was the client against the owner. But if it's a team effort, I say this all the time, it's a team effort once the contractor gets on board. If there's something wrong with the contractor's not performing, everyone in this room is not performing. So it's important. So the strategy I took with that was at the University of Rhode Island. I said, we'll defend it for you. I'll keep track of my time. Gave him an approximate number. So at the end, if you win the case, we get paid. If you don't, we don't. But my best advice to everybody on my staff that I say is you have to confront a problem right away. Don't let it stew. You know, we're doing a fire station together in Brewster with Pomeroy, and, you know, you hate to say it, but, you know, we will make mistakes, right? Everybody on my staff gets mad when I say this at interviews. There's going to be mistakes that are made on the drawings. We're not perfect. You know, there was some glass that was, as part of the file sub-bid, the glass was not carried under the file sub-bid. You know, we didn't try to hide it. We brought it up to the owner right away, explained what the situation was, and, you know, we could have waited months. You know, it's probably not the best thing to say, okay, we made a mistake in the first, you know, 2 meetings that we're meeting within the construction. But it is what it is. We're very open about that. We are gonna make some mistakes. We've never made catastrophic errors. They're all, you know, small things that you miss. You're gonna forget the electrical or something, right, Mark?
No,
Coordination.
You never have issues.
There's always a bit of a coordination issue. Think something got changed last minute, there was a dimension that was wrong, or whatever, and we always work. I try to be as proactive as we can, and try to be as open as we can. I find honesty is the best policy, because otherwise it brews, and then before you know it, you got lawyers involved and the like. And that's why we've never had a lawsuit, ever. Not even close.
Ben?
You guys ever had any projects where you were disappointed in its outcome, and why?
Another good question. I would say, Steve, you can weigh in. I would say I'll tell you who we don't work a lot with, the developers. And quite often, the 2 things that I probably least like doing are working with developers and working in a design-build relationship. So some of the projects that we've done design-build, so if you understand design-build, we're teamed with the contractor. Typically, we're working for the contractor. Quite often, I'm put together with that contractor because of a client relationship, and we want to build this together. We do it, don't get me wrong, I do it selectively with people that I can work with, but in those situations, inevitably, dollar rules, and in every design-build relationship, which is why it gets a little fuzzy, is I always say I'm working for the owner. I don't care who sends me the check. Sometimes I get in trouble for that, but, you know, and so probably our biggest sort of head-to-head stuff is when I'm defending the owner against the contractor who's paying me. So it gets difficult, and we try to stay away from that. So in developers, you know, you tell them to make it blue with this, and whatever little design thing they give you, and then they take it out, so it's like you finish it, and it's like, well, what happened to that little turret? It's gone. Like, you know, so, it's a good question.
I think, I'll just throw one in, is a lot, sometimes, and not so much, it's more in the private sector, is we'll get value engineering, and a design that we know is the proper design for a building gets value engineered, which means, you know, they've taken this, you give up, you sacrifice some of the design, some of the comfort features or abilities. So in the end, the client may not get the result that they expected, but they like the price.
So that's somebody taking your design and trying to cheapen it?
Well, they
basically?
cheapen it up, exactly. It doesn't necessarily happen in the public sector projects. We don't usually take that approach if we can get the project in within budget, which is critical to the design team and the cost estimator that we're doing that. But that process in the private sector, when you you're kind of cheapening up the job, and we're trying to, you know, manage that. Sometimes the results aren't what everybody thought they were going to be, or they're not happy with the results. But they forget that you did it for a reason. You did it because you couldn't afford what, you know, was the best solution, maybe. But those are definitely cases where you be challenged.
And the systems get beat the most on value engineering. Mechanical systems.
The mechanical's the one, everybody hones in on that one, right there.
That's too expensive.
Things that
Let's
you
put
don't
one
see.
thermostat, it's a 70,000 square foot building, one thermostat, you'll be fine.
Right.
I know we're squeezed for time, so I'm gonna try to get everybody's questions, so.
Yeah, we got about 2 minutes.
Carlton?
If you could talk about your track record with cost estimating compared to the bids received and the completed project?
I would say very good, actually. Of late, we've been right on the numbers. Some of the, Brewster was under budget, Smithfield was under budget. Just a couple of recent projects. Occasionally you get the blip project. For no, I can tell you the opposite side of that is we're doing work at a career technical center in Warwick. It was a small, how many square feet?
2,000 square foot addition, just an open dining hall, just an extension of the existing, it's like a culinary arts program, just an open dining hall, no kitchen, just 2 toilet rooms, and it came in at $575 a square foot. Even the contractors who called me said they couldn't figure out why it came in so high. So that's very unusual, because we were thinking it was going to be more like $350. Came in at $575.
So we
Maybe,
do,
you know, because of the size of the project, maybe because of the difficulty getting to the site. So a lot of factors can come into that.
so occasionally you get one of those. We work with the client, it's going back out to bid. We've never had a project not built because of budget.
Paul?
Almost.
Mark?
I am also.
I'll just finish up with one more. We're at 45 minutes, but what do you see as the most challenging part of designing a police station as compared to other types of buildings?
Well, I mean, it's the flow. I mean, obviously, we have keeping the public safe and on, because we've got public transactions, and then we have the private transactions. And you want to keep the private, when I say you understand what I mean, private. So we want to keep those private transactions separate, and so they don't meet. You know, most of the older police stations now, everybody's in the lobby, you know, and we put in interview rooms right off the lobby so that you can take somebody in right away, deal with it, then decide, you know, through the man trap so you can be protected right in. We've often put an interview room right in the man trap so you can deal with it. So whether it's an angry neighbor or somebody that just had an assault, you know, so many things happen in that lobby. How do you deal with it? Where do you put them? How do you deal with that quickly and efficiently and safely? And then, so the public side versus the private side, and keeping that separate and trying to make sure that the twain don't meet at all. It's really important. I mean, it's obvious, but it's thoughtful. You've got to think about how you're going to handle it, because you never know what's coming in the front door as well. You pretty much know what's coming in the back door, I hope. But sometimes things happen in the back door too that you're aware of, and we prepare for that as well, because sometimes, you know, stuff gets a little out of control, and we give you the information and compartmentalization so that all is taken care of. But the front door probably makes me more nervous than the back. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but.
Yeah.
And also, the factor of the NFP 1221, probably familiar with that, with all the Homeland Security, whether, if it's got a dispatch center in it, this could be a driving force for the cost. There are requirements in the 1221 that if you have a dispatch center and you allow vehicles closer than 80 feet to the building, then you have to be explosion-proof with your dispatch room, bulletproof windows, blast-proof doors. That drives the price. So I'm not sure if that's something that, but we have to consider that on every project we do that has a dispatch center in it because of the 1221, the new codes. So, and that's something that is always a challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck. Appreciate it. Thanks again for inviting us.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
See her out there.
So we can, just head to the CAC if you guys want, while the other borough comes in and sets up. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I didn't look at that.
Questions?
Oh, thank you. Steve,
Tiny house.
That makes, are you all right like that, Mark, or you want more room?
All right, thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you, thank you very much.
Good night, thank you.
Rita? Huh? She's crazy. I'm a bad guy.
Yeah, I know, you're just terrible guy. I'm a bad guy, too.
She's out of her fucking mind. And this is this person?
Oh, am I?
Oh, we're in Denver.
Yeah, but I'm definitely, yeah.
And his personal electrician for that.
Oh, yeah. You too?
She's not, she's
No,
not you.
no.
She likes you.
Yeah, right. Seems like so. Yeah,
She's a piece of work.
yeah. I told her she's gonna get a payday. Well, she says in that, when I told her that she's gonna get a payday.
no objection, then we'll turn it over to Taylor.
So Brian, thank you for coming. You have 45 minutes, 30 of presentation, and then 15 of Q&A. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'll let you have an opportunity to introduce yourselves too. I'm Brian Humes, Jakunsky Humes Architects.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Lisa Pacheco, Chair of the Building Committee, and also a selectman.
Mary Brown, and I'm just a committee member, and I'm chairman of the Freetown Historical Commission.
Charles Sullivan, member of the Board of Selectmen.
Charles.
My name's Jack Healy, I'm the town administrator.
I'm Ben Levesque, I'm a police department.
Carlton Abbott, chief of police.
Paul Sadik, I'm a member of the building committee.
Mark Fonshire from the police department.
No, thank you for inviting me. We're here because we're interested in your project, but I want to give you 30 minutes just to learn a little bit more about Jakunsky Humes Architects, and I'm sure it's a firm you've never heard of before, and there could be a reason for that. It's because we kind of go under the radar, but what we do is police facilities, and that's why we submitted for your proposal. That's why we're interested in this project. I have been designing police facilities for over 30 years. That's a fact. And for the last 22 years, I have been doing it as Jakunsky Humes Architects. I do have a partner out Jakunsky. The reason that I started Jakunsky Humes Architects 22 years ago is because I was designing police facilities, and the firm that I was with, I felt that I could do a better job if I did it myself. And 22 years ago, I went off to do it myself, and it's what I've been doing for 22 years. If you're asking anybody about designing a police facility, or how do you go about it, or what's important, even if you ask the IACP, which is the International Association of Chiefs of Police, they will tell you, gain experience. And that seems to be the formula that helps communities and municipalities come out with a successful project. The IACP doesn't say, here's your formula for designing a police facility. They say the formula that you should look out for is to gain experience. So we have put our hat in this ring. We have stayed in this building type, and I don't look to get out of this building type. And I still have some years ahead of me. I'm not at the end of my career. So I am looking to maintain what I'm doing and take on a certain number of clients every year. We are very selective as to who we put a proposal in for. We are different in the sense that if you were in Freetown putting out a school project, you would not see our proposal. If you were going to put out a library project or a municipal project, you would not see our proposal. But because you're putting out a police facility design, and it met some criteria that we have in the office for selecting who we are interested in serving, that's why you have a proposal. So in a quick snapshot of what I've been doing is, this is what we've been doing in Connecticut in the last 22 years. This is police facility design only through Jakunsky Humes Architects. So this is not going back any further back than when I started the company. We are located in Berlin, Connecticut, so we're right in the geographical center of the state. But if there's anybody in the last 22 years that's been doing police facilities in the state of Connecticut, we're actively involved with those projects. We know what's going on because we've been hired by those communities to assist them. And how do we get all this work? We get all this work the same way that we're doing this tonight. There's no municipality in Connecticut that can't go through the RFP process, that has to go through this RFP process. And we have to put proposals together, and we have to do it the exact same way we're doing it tonight. But I think there's a network in Connecticut, and you can see that chiefs talk to chiefs, and departments know departments, and they know where the successful projects have been and where the pitfalls have been with other departments, and we seem to be on the leading track of what's happening in Connecticut. But don't think that we're a stranger to Massachusetts. This is the same 22 years, and it represents the same time frame and the same amount of active projects that we have had in Massachusetts. So I don't want you to think that, oh, they're a Connecticut firm. Yes, we are a Connecticut firm, but we have just as much of our feet in Massachusetts as we do in Connecticut. We are right now active in a number of these projects. Some of these projects go back a ways. Some of these projects we have been a consultant to other architectural firms. We're doing a project right now at UMass Boston. UMass Boston wanted to build a parking garage. Within the parking garage, they wanted to put a police facility. So they hired an architect for the parking garage, and we were the consultant for the police facility. So we do have some associations with other architectural firms. We prefer to be the lead architect. We prefer to be the ones that you sign a contract with, you have a tie to, you have a telephone direct contact with, and you can get in touch with me. Now you asked, am I here alone tonight? I'm here alone tonight because in the early stages, in the middle stages, in the late stages of the project, I'm the one you're going to deal with. We don't pass that off. We have an office of 10. We have 5 licensed architects within the firm. All of them have been there 10 years or more. All of them have police facility experience. I'm getting the drawings done. But I'm the one that leads the charge as far as who's the contact for the client, who's at the interviews, who's doing the needs assessment, who's doing the design, who's overseeing the drawings, who's even going to the job meetings when it's under construction. The reason we can do this is because we limit how many proposals we put out. Now, I said earlier, you fit our criteria within our office that was favorable for us, and we hope that it's favorable to you. But we would not put a proposal out unless, 1, we were interested in the project as far as the scope. 2, we understood that there's a need and there seems to be a direction as to a goal and a solution. And 3, maybe more importantly, we have the time in the office. We are different in this respect that we're not looking to grow the firm. We're looking to keep satisfied clients. So if there's not a slot or a time frame that you can fit into within our office, you wouldn't have seen a proposal. And that would be true if we were to get this project. We are saying no to other proposals and other RFPs that are out there. And we are saying no to municipalities, and that's one of the reasons why our competition is out there also doing police facilities. That there's more out there right now than we can do in our office. But if it seems to be a favorable fit, we like to go after and really dive in with both feet. This is going to be something we would be committed to, just like we're committed to all of these clients, just like we're out for client satisfaction. Obviously, not all of these are active. Don't think we're actively working on all of these. The ones that we're actively working on is, there's one right here in Lakeville. That was another reason why this one seemed attractive to us, because we are going to Lakeville. We are working next door. They are a similar schedule. So I am in this region, and I am going to Lakeville. The other place that we're still active is Dennis. So Lakeville's not the only thing that's drawing us over to this part of Massachusetts. We are actively at 2 projects in Dennis. And interestingly enough, we did the Dennis Police Station 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, after we finished the Dennis Police Department, we have had an active project in Dennis for the last 10 years. They've continued to hire us. We did their town hall annex after the police department. We did their town hall. We did a study for their senior center. And right now we're doing a golf course clubhouse expansion, and we're doing a Mayflower Beach bathhouse. That kind of tells you what I'm trying to convey as far as this client satisfaction. that they just thought that the service they got when we did the police facility, we've continued to service that client with other facilities. But then what you're seeing here is just our public safety experience. Some of the projects that we've recently completed, in Danbury, Connecticut, this is a facility that was on Main Street in Danbury. This is about 75,000 square feet. Just under construction right now. We're working with the city of Stamford, and we're putting up 100,000 square feet of police facility and 100,000 square feet of parking garage. And this is a downtown urban site. This is the second largest city in Connecticut. I'll tell you, the competition for this project was immense. As I said, this is the second largest city in the state of Connecticut. And we had, down in the Stamford area, all the architectural firms coming out of New York for this project, all the architectural firms coming out of Hartford for this project, and architectural firms coming out of Boston for this project. They selected us, a 10-person firm. This was bid, and it's under construction right now, and we're about $5 million under budget. And right now, they're putting in footings and foundations for this portion of the project. Downtown urban site. But I showed you a couple big ones. Chatham, smaller project. That's out at the tip of the Cape. So yes, we went even further than Dennis. This is both a police department and town office annex. The police department is on this side, mirrored as a second building, town office annex. And if you're ever in Chatham, this is right next to the Chatham Airport. So if you orient yourself, the airport's right here, so we're right across from the airport. This is a project that we just finished up in Old Saybrook. This is a renovation of an existing building. But the reason I brought this rendering, and the reason I brought this is I wanted to talk a little bit about schematic design. This is where all of our projects start, is let's get a schematic design. I wanted you to see what our schematic designs look like. This is the level of detail that you would expect in a schematic design. We've just finished up the schematic design for Lakeville. This is the schematic design level that they saw, so it's all detailed. There's furniture in place as far as dispatch consoles. There's everything that you can see. If they needed a training room for how many people, we got to make sure that all those people fit in the training room. The number of detention cells, the number of booking rooms, the number of sally ports. They actually had additional indoor fleet storage. So they had fleet garages, emergency management storage. This is evidence and evidence storage. Records and administration is over in this area. All the blue is patrol functions, locker rooms, training rooms, sergeants' offices, lieutenants are over here. This is detectives. That level of schematic design should give you the confidence that your needs assessment is being met. And if it's in your needs assessment, it should be on the plan. All of these, and this is the schematic rendering that was done at this level. So you should have enough information that it works on the plan, but also what it's going to look like as far as the architecture. And this was an existing building. It was a pretty drab front of the building. This piece of it is an addition. That's all we did on the front of the building is put this addition on it. We painted out the brick, put some new windows in it. But that right there made the front elevation. This addition right here is all we put on the front of the building. This was all an existing building. We put an addition, an L-shaped addition here, and we put this little addition on the front. And in Old Saybrook, that's what their solution was. But that was all in the schematic design phase. You didn't have to go beyond schematic design to get that level of finished product. Now, what's the process? The process for me is the key. How am I doing on time?
14 minutes in.
I've put together this police facility design manual. I think the most important piece of what you can do for your department and what you can do for your project happens in the space needs assessment. It's the most important piece of the whole process. Now what's the methodology of going through a space needs assessment? Well, one of the methodologies is doing it and having done it before, but also going through this questionnaire manual that I've put together. And if, in the last 25 years, if I've seen it, it goes in the manual. So we go through this manual with the department. The department may only understand the way they're doing it now, or the way you might have seen it done in another facility. I'm bringing to the table the way that I've seen it done at all these facilities. Every patch that's on here, I can hold up a needs assessment. If I brought all of them, that would be a big box. And that's an awful big box. But if it's a patch on the board, I did the needs assessment. All of them were done by me. So the knowledge that I have in programming all of those facilities goes into this, and I'm the one that sits with you, and I'm the one that goes through and asks the questions. It's still not a wants and needs meeting. It's because I try to eliminate the wants, and I get down to what are the needs. What do you really need? And if I sit with a department and if it sounds like it doesn't really ring true for a community of your size, I'm going to question it to make sure it's really a need. I'm not going to, I listen and I listen and I listen, but I'm also going to challenge, but I'm also going to bring insight, because maybe what I'm hearing can be improved upon by the way they might have done it in Glastonbury, or the way they might have done it in Chatham, or the way they might have doing it over here in New Canaan, or some of the things that we put into Torrington or Winchester, or down here in Darien. Because I've gone through the same process with all these departments. CID labs, forensics labs, you know, I'll ask some questions. Interrogation, sally ports, locker rooms. What's the latest things that are being done out there? What's the latest trends? What do I see in the future? What do I see how locker rooms have evolved? That's what we bring to the table as far as getting that process done. Now I can hand some of these out. This is one we just finished up in Hardwick in February. This was Chatham. And I just grabbed some. This was Dennis. This is Bethel. This Bethel one's interesting because we did it in 2004. We were asked to go back and update it in 2014 because it sat on a shelf for 10 years. This is the Stanford facility. These are cost estimates, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll get to those.
I'm good.
So we go through those. What I do want to pass out is here is a list of the facilities that I have done needs assessments on, starting from population size. Now, I showed you some big facilities. Yeah, Stanford's on the list. It's population 122,000 people in Stanford. But if you turn the sheet over, you see Freetown in red? I don't just do big facilities. The size of the facility is not dependent on how I'm interested in your project. Freetown is actually at 9,200 population, a lot bigger than some of the things that I've done below. The fact that it's a police facility is why I'm interested and why I'm here tonight. Not because it's 9,200 square, 9,200 population. The ones that are in yellow are the space needs assessment that I've conducted that have gone on to build the facility. That's another thing that you should be looking at. How many space needs assessment has the architect done that have gone on to actually get constructed? Because that tells you whether the municipality is responding to the needs assessment. Somebody could come in and give you a needs assessment that really is pie in the sky, and the municipality never funds it because it never responds to the needs of the community in a way that's effective. We have to understand that there's, yes, the need for the department, but there's also a demand and need for the town to find that it's reasonable. That's a hurdle. Having done a lot of these, I can help the town get through that hurdle. Because you're gonna get a lot of questions when it goes to the public. Why so big? Why so much? Well, we give you data which now compares your facility to other communities of like size. I started to do that with this piece of paper. So what I did with the Freetown, with the list with Freetown, I gave you a department list of the departments that were 3 above and 4 below as far as population. Now I gave you more data because we have this data, because we did these facilities. And I just threw in Lakeville because it's next door. Now with this, you can see most of these are yellow, so most of these are funded beyond the study phase. Lakeville is looking to do that in June, so they're not yellow yet. Hopefully they're going to turn yellow in June, but they're not yellow yet. For Freetown, you're looking at 9,200 in population. The projected sworn, well, the current sworn is 19. I don't yet know what your projected sworn is, but your current sworn is 19. Your space needs, you've indicated a need for 15,000 square feet. And that equates to 789 square feet per sworn. Square feet per sworn is a good indicator of how you compare with neighboring communities of like size. Square foot per sworn. So if I just took the data that you gave me, and I don't know what projected sworn is, but right now I take the data, 789 square foot per sworn. That's on the high side. I have one at Woodbridge, which is 820 square foot per sworn. That's not funded. The ones that are funded are about 700 and below square foot per sworn. That's the kind of data that your community is going to start asking you about. That's the kind of data that you need to back up your space needs assessment with. And true, if the 19 goes up to 28, you might be down in that 600 to 700 range. So now that's the data that's critical. That's the data that the population is going to start saying, no, I see it now. You see Lakeville? We're at 492. It came down to needs. It came down to listening. It came down to making sure that they had on their floor plan everything that they felt they needed. And they're at 492.
What's this last column?
The last column is if it was built, what the size of the facility was when we built it. Because when we do a needs assessment, we have not yet put pencil to paper. When we put pencil to paper, we're going to end up with a floor plan. And in Lakeville, our schematic plan, which looks like this, is 11,770. That's what we're going to go to town meeting with. Where the space needs assessment was 11,320. You have to actually put it into a plan. I can't hit that space needs number exactly, but it's a guide to get us to where we need to be. You look at the next one down, Old Saybrook Police Department, it went from a space needs assessment of 18.5 to a built facility of 22.6. That's this one. That's why I grabbed this board. And you think, why did he go from 18 to 22? Well, for this one, and I thought you might ask me that question. This, we had an existing building, remember? Here is what I added was vehicle storage, prisoner processing and detention, and sally ports. All that couldn't go in this existing building. So I had to add it. All I did was add a little piece on the front. But I had a renovation cost here instead of new construction. This was my only piece of new construction. And this is how we satisfied their space needs assessment. This is built. Now this is built and occupied. Because the community felt that's a good solution. They didn't feel that the 22,000 was an issue because a renovation project for them was cheaper per square foot than new construction. But everything else, Winchendon went from 14,000 to 12,400 when we had a final solution. They just occupied last fall. Canton we did about 18 years ago. In Montague we did about 8 or 9 years ago. But this is just some of the data I can give you on these facilities. I have a lot of data. And not only data on the facilities, I have data on costs. Because that's the last piece. How much is it going to cost?
You have about 5 minutes, Brian.
My last piece is cost, and what we do in our proposal, we've included a professional cost estimate. This is the data that you're going to get based on our schematic design. You might have some architects who say, yeah, we'll do the cost estimate. We're going to go off our last project, and our last project cost this much per square foot, so we're going to inflate yours a little bit because it's a little different, and that doesn't tell you how much your facility is going to cost. In my opinion, that's a waste of money. We take the plan, the schematic design, we send it to a professional cost estimator, and they take off every bit of that project into a detailed takeoff. KV Associates is who we utilize out of Boston, Massachusetts. And this is one for, well, this happens to be Chatham. But I brought this one along too. This is KV Associates. This is one they did for me in December of 1996. That's how long I've been using it. They've been doing a cost estimating for all my public safety projects for the last 22 years. They not only track all of these projects through the cost estimating phase, they go back and find out what the bids were, how they need to adjust, what the costs of police facilities are coming in at on a regional basis, whether it's Connecticut and Massachusetts. They have so much cost data built up on our designs that they're scary good as far as accuracy. And that's what you need. That's what we want to bring to the table. We want to bring something that you can really use and it's effective. Because if the costs come in a little high at this phase, we go right back here. What can we do here to adjust this? What can we do here to make this a number that you feel is appropriate? That's how we work together. We do this collaboratively. We do this with you. We can't do it without you. And we feel that that's what's really made this kind of a win-win for the communities that we're in. And we're going to continue doing what we're doing. And whether it's for you or not for you, we're going to continue to do it. But we're here tonight because we really hope that we can be doing it for you. And work collaboratively, take the jacket off and roll up the sleeves and get to the table and help in a way that is effective and help in a way that you feel is getting more than your money's worth for what you're looking to do.
Right on time.
Did I run out of time? Do I have another minute?
You get 2 minutes.
As somebody that's doing this, I don't know if there's another firm out there that takes the time to actually do the research, but we're active with the Mass Chiefs of Police. We're active with the Connecticut Chiefs of Police. And every year I attend the International Chiefs of Police Conventions. The reason I'm invested in that amount of research is I feel that it does my clients a service. So that's what I have been doing, I will continue to do. And I just want you to know that that's kind of the level of expertise and the cooperation that I hope you're gonna find if we were able to be successful here. I'm ready for questions. Maybe we can,
Steve Lombard there with you, did that? Steve
no,
Lombard,
was he in the department?
town manager, and Dennis?
Not in '05,
Yes.
not in '05. No, that's not a familiar name. So these, yeah,
Mark,
I
we'll
will,
start down there with you this time.
I will have to get these back.
Okay, that was a nice and impressive presentation. You've sold yourself pretty well. What about the other areas? What about the site plans and all of that good stuff? And how they meld together and how you guys are gonna do that?
I have consultants. I'm gonna be hiring consultants. I did bring your site plan, just for you to talk about the site plan. I know that you're starting to work with an engineer on this, and I would propose that I continue to work with that engineer. If there's a civil engineer that's local, I wanna work with a local civil engineer. All that I see that they've done so far is taken the Acushnet Police Department and the Lakeville Library and put them on a plan. For me, that doesn't tell me much. That tells me that's the site. Unless I know how this was derived for Freetown, this is just a block. For instance, you only have 6 visitor spaces here. You want a community training room in your facility?
We're seriously considering it.
No, you're gonna need more than 6 little parking spaces if you're gonna do that. Right. And those are some of the things, you gotta go back to the needs assessment. I know that there was a number of 15,000 square feet thrown out there. I don't know how that number was derived, if there's been a needs assessment done in the past.
That was a number derived by this committee going to visit several police stations and putting a maximum number in there. We never voted that our police station was gonna be 15,000 square feet.
Good
We
answer.
visited a couple of police stations and we put a maximum amount. We also visited the Acushnet Police Station, and we needed to give Kelly Engineering some sort of direction as to how big or how small our station is gonna be. So they just used both of those facilities or buildings as just an example of where it would be located within that site. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at all of the things that Kelly Engineering did, but that's just, just at the end of our results.
I'm only gonna take this as far as saying, that's the site and will it work? I mean, I know where the site is, as far as this is where we are now, where it's being proposed. But again, this is just telling me that there's land available. We need to back off that, because I've been asked to go into a lot of communities, and the first thing they'd ask me is, I'd like to look at this site for a police facility. And my answer to them was, I can't look at your site yet until I know what's gonna go. That takes a step back to a needs assessment. That's why I said earlier, the most important piece that you can get right on this project is your space needs assessment. Because that's gonna drive all of the decisions going forward, all of them. All the way to the end, because your space needs assessment should have enough detail in it to know exactly what you're looking for in that facility when it's finished. But it's gotta be that starting point. If you don't get the needs assessment right, and all of a sudden you start to apply it to a site, and then you start to develop floor plans, and only then you say, oh, we forgot 2 offices. The way these police facilities are designed, each room, as you know, is specific to a need. And if you're thinking about future offices in the administrative area, that's where the future offices need to be. Not as an addition off the end of the building, which is not near your administrative area. It's not like a classroom where all of a sudden the school gets bigger and you start adding classrooms. You can't do that with a police facility. That would be failure. So you need to build in your plan for 20-year growth into what you're doing here. And then your site needs assessment has to identify everything that's going to happen around it. And yes, we may end up with these 2 points of entry and exit, but everything in here is probably going to change. No doubt about it. Everything in here is going to change. Now, yeah, you can plan for something future there. that's probably good planning. But all this is telling me right now is that's where you'd like to put it.
And what about MEPs, Brian? Different engineers that you work
MEPs,
with?
we've used different engineers. I think in this proposal, we had Garcia, Beluska, D'Souza. Lakeville, we're using BER. Other projects, I mean, in Massachusetts, we typically have been utilizing one of 3 MEP engineers. If you have any hesitation to the engineers or consultants that you have in our proposal, talk to me. Because they're only gonna get hired if they pass muster with you as a committee. And I'm willing to, shift if I need to shift. But all of those are consultants that I like to use because they've worked with us, they know our facilities, they know the designs, they've done a police facility before. And as I said, the most important thing you can get the experience. So if you want to go with the team I proposed, that's one direction. If you want to go with another team that you have confidence in, as long as I can get some confidence in them, that's fine. We want to make it right for you. But all of those MEP, civil, interior design, we even have a hardware consultant, because the police facility is, you got to get the hardware right. If you don't get the hardware right, there's a lot of money involved with hardware. We have a consultant that we use for that, for hardware. They coordinate the hardware with the access control. Don't miss that stuff. So we have a consultant that we proposed for that purpose. So that would be all wrapped up into our fee, and I'm sure we can find an amicable fee. All of these facilities are negotiated fees. We haven't shied away from satisfying the needs of these communities with fee structures.
Paul?
There was one particular question that I'm sure somebody on the department is going to ask, so I'm going to just let it pass on. I think you did a great presentation, very informative, and I liked your approach. But is somebody going to ask about that Lakeville thing? All right. If that's the case, I will go on to the next person.
Ask me about Lakeville.
Well, I'll just ask, generally, how did you come up with the design for that station? Because it's a little unorthodox compared to some of the other ones that I've seen.
Starts with the space needs assessment. I'll go one step back in the discussion on Lakeville. When Lakeville put out their RFP, Taylor was involved with the RFP. They put within their RFP that the station they're most enamored with was Marion. Yeah, we did Marion. We went into the committee and we said, at this point, we're going to do a needs assessment. If at the end of the needs assessment, you still like Marion, we could just move Marion down the street. We got our drawings all done, plans are all done, and I can give you a great deal because it's already done. We did the needs assessment. When we got done with the needs assessment, if you compared Lakeville's needs assessment with Marion's needs assessment, they weren't that close. So why were they thinking about bringing Marion to Lakeville? Because these space needs assessments were not that similar. And after they got done with the needs assessment, and they saw it and they identified everything that they wanted as far as a need, even the chief of police said, yeah, there are things that Marion had that we don't really think we need, or we don't really like the way it was put together. It's just fine. I have yet to go to a municipality where I can take any of these facilities, pick it up, and put it down. So it goes back to the needs assessment. The needs assessment was identified, and it also identified adjacencies. The floor plan was specifically dictated off of that needs assessment. It's a solution for Lakeville.
Can I ask one other question? Not to interrupt, but in that process, I don't understand the way that they handled their prisoner, like actually watching prisoners.
Yeah.
Was that I know that they have their dispatch staff actually watch prisoners.
Right.
Was that part of your assessment to how you came to that design?
Yeah.
Was driven by that?
Yeah. Because their dispatchers go right across the hall into
Right.
prisoner
Right.
processing. There's a direct shot from door across the hall to door, and they go straight across the hall, review prisoners, and then go right back to dispatch.
So that's,
That was
that's
a
how the
direct-
detention ended up being on that side of
It's
the
a
building?
direct
as opposed to-
solution to their space needs.
Okay, okay.
And when they talk the space needs assessment and review the space needs assessment and tell me, and we go through all the adjacencies, and I put a floor plan out, and they're like, and then they say, that's everything we talked about. Now for Lakeville, that's a home run. But I have yet to find a community that says, oh, pick this one up and give it to us, because there's always something that's different.
Right.
And just like I can't pick Marion up anymore and bring it over to Lakeville, where they thought that was going to be their solution. Oh, just pick up Marion. We'll just... They could have done that. And I said, I'll do that. I don't have any problem with that. I'm actually waiting for the first municipality to say, yeah, that's exactly what we wanted. But I have yet to, 22 years, and I have yet to find it. So we're going to do Freetown Police Department here. And yeah, it's not going to look exactly like Lakeville. It's not going to look like Marion. It's going to function. There's always something different that you're going to bring to the table that says, that's what we're looking for. And that's why we don't have just cookie cutter designs.
Can I just ask, because you missed one part of it, I guess, in my opinion. Why did they put the community room next to the cell block?
It's all about adjacencies. If you're in the community room, you have no idea what a cell block is. You're not going to hear the cell block. You're not going to know where it is.
You can't hear the cell block?
You will not hear the cell block. So if you're in the community room, cell block could be anywhere. Now you're looking at it as a floor plan. You know that the cell block's over there, but if the cell block had to be near the dispatchers, dispatchers had to be near the lobby, and the training classroom had to be near the lobby. There's your adjacency. That's what makes it efficient. So if I had put the cell block and did prisoner processing at the whole other end of the building, which maybe you prefer, Lakeville would have looked at me and said, you weren't listening.
So they were driving it.
Absolutely. That's their facility. Absolutely. I can make it work. And I'm making it work. Because now Lakeville looks at this and says, we fully support this. And they're going to get up at town meeting saying they fully support it. We got a space needs assessment of 11,003. We have a floor plan of 11,007. We knew when we were at the end of the space needs assessment, we knew kind of how much that was going to cost. Pomeroy did a budget on it. After the space needs assessment, we kind of know how much these are going to cost. If that wasn't the right number, we had to make a change then. We had an ability to change it then. They said, no, this is kind of what we were anticipating. This is what we need. This is what we need. This is what we need. So it progressed and progressed and progressed. Now we knew how much it was going to cost. It ended up, when we got to the end of the schematic design, we went through this 30-page professional cost estimate. We were off by a couple $100,000.
I was pretty close.
Yeah.
The next question, of course, is how does your cost estimating compare to bids and completed costs?
I think within the proposal,
It's 4%.
4.8% average over, that's for change orders. But I gave you all the data
Yeah.
of how the space needs assessment compared with the bid amount. I'm very proud of that chart.
Yeah.
And
And
that's why you put it in there.
I know, I'm proud of that chart. It's in there. So I gave you the bid amount,
Yeah.
and then I gave you the change order total. And then I gave you the total cost. It's probably toward the end, but I'm proud of that chart. Because that's filed subbidding, and that's low bid contractors, and that's, if your drawings aren't right, you're gonna get creamed.
Yeah, that tells the story.
So we gotta have good documents. We're very proud of our documents. We have very low change order rates. That's the chart, right here. That's the chart. And you can see way back how much things cost dollars per square foot. I wish they were that. You can see how the numbers creep up and creep up and creep up, because that's going back the years. But I gave you all the data. There's not one on there that I'm not proud of. That we're able to get these projects done for the initial appropriation. We have never had to go back for a second appropriation on any of our projects.
Charlie, do you have a question?
No, I think
Mary?
One thing, you didn't say when you'd be ready, if you were selected, when you'd be ready to start, meet in a time frame. And you have how
I
many?
didn't know if I was ready to be here tonight, but we're here. No, so we're available, we're ready. Okay, that was one of the criteria that fell into why that we submitted. We are going to Lakeville, we are going to Dennis, so yeah, we can team up with trips that we're making back and forth. The initial space needs assessment is I would be talking with the department. I've done some space needs assessments where I've talked to one or two people in the department. I've done space needs assessment where I talk with the entire department. I will talk with whoever you want me to talk with. I just asked you to be the one to coordinate that, but if you want me to talk top to bottom, that's fine.
No, I have a question. What would you recommend? Talking to everyone or talking to a few?
What I recommend is if I talk to everyone, you designate who the funnel is. Because it has to come back to a point. And whether that funnel point's the chief, that funnel point's been some deputy chiefs. Because if I talk to everybody and some says that we want 2 Sally ports, some says we want 3 Sally ports, and they all say that's the need, well, there's got to be a funnel that says, here's what I'm hearing, what's the answer? I listen, but then there has to be a funnel in the end of saying, that's the decision we're going to make, because one might be a want, and one translates more to a need. And we've done alternates to, adjusting documents to see if we can get more than we anticipate as far as the dollars are concerned. Marion had some alternates.
No, I'm all set.
In terms of the initial upfront programming
Mm-hmm.
and the actual design and drive of the building, what percentage would you give to yourself driving that design, or the committee, driving that design? I know it comes from the space needs, but if you had to put a percentage on how you end up with the final layout, or is there one?
The final layout is generated from the space needs assessment, and the space needs assessment is generated, 85% of that is generated through what I'm listening to. So the document, that space needs assessment, is what I'm listening to, and I document it. And I document it, and I know what I'm listening to, and I know what I'm writing. But then when it gets translated into a floor plan, it's 100% me to put something on the table.
That follows the space need.
Yeah, 100% me. And it comes from me. I don't, again, I take this seriously. I draw. Now, I have draftsmen in my office, put them into the computer, but I still have a pencil in my hand. I draw them, and then they're put on the table, and they're not complete until you say they're complete. So it might go through some revisions, it might go through some changes. We're not done until you say we're done. Now, the other thing that I did with Lakeville that I'm offering to Freetown is Lakeville appropriated a whole lot of money for design. I think Freetown appropriated a whole lot of money for design. We signed a contract with Lakeville for $25,000. I wasn't interested with all the money they approved. I signed a contract with Lakeville for $25,000. For $25,000, I offered them a needs assessment, a site evaluation, a floor plan and elevations, and a professional cost estimate. And I'll make the same offer here. What that gave Lakeville is everything they need right now to go to that June town meeting. They're not spending anything more right now than $25,000 to get them there. And now they have everything they know as far as what it's gonna look like, as far as a floor plan, an elevation, a professional cost estimate, it fits on the site, everybody knows. Now they're gonna go vote the whole project. And if they vote it down, they spent $25,000. But I think they're gonna look to get this funded somehow. And some of these go through 1, 2 referendums, 3 referendums. But the initial appropriation for Lakeville is $25,000 to just get them that far. Now, obviously, we'd like to just continue on with Lakeville and get this whole thing done and built. That's really our motivation. Let's get the thing built. I'm not in the business to put these on shelves. I'm in the business to get them built, to turn them into yellows. I want more yellows on those sheets. So yeah, we're in line, but if I didn't do a good job for Lakeville, they had every opportunity at this point to change ship and go to another architect. Because all they had me under contract was for $25,000. And if it didn't work out, we'll go to somebody else.
We're going to start to wrap up, Brian, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So who is it that's gonna beam you in, Scotty, on your long ride home?
I'm heading back to Vermont.
Thank you very much.
Vermont.
Yeah.
Is that business or pleasure?
Is that it, Lisa?
This one happens
That's
to be
Police subcommittee meeting, call it to order, sorry.
You gotta give us, you gotta give us some time here. I'm
We're
old.
2 minutes late. Anybody taping the meeting?
There you go.
Mr. Sadik for the committee and free cam. Okay, I'll turn it over to Pomeroy.
All right. Good evening. Thank you guys for being here today. My name's Taylor MacDonald with Pomeroy Associates. We'll introduce ourselves down the line. You have 45 minutes, 30 minutes of presentation, and then 15 of question and answer. So it's really up to you to kind of control that first part of your presentation. We wish you luck. Thank you. Want to go down the line, Jack?
My name is Jack Healy, I'm the town administrator in Freetown.
Lisa Pacheco, Board of Selectmen and Chair of the committee.
Charles Sullivan, Board of Selectmen.
Mary Brown, Freetown Historical Commission.
Benjamin Levack, Police Department.
Carlton Abbott, Chief of Police.
Paul Sadie, on the
Mark Fornashari from the police department.
Okay.
Well, hello again. My name's Andrew DiGiamo from Compass Group Architecture. I'm here tonight to hopefully convince you that we've put together the ideal team to be your architects for the police station. And that's what it's all about on these projects, is the team. And not only the team that the firm has, but the people you get to work with. And the people you get to work with on this project, most of them you're looking at right here. We guarantee that you will see us. I'm up first. I'm speaking because I'll be the point man on this project. I'll be the project architect. I'll be the face you would see the most, the go-to guy. Over here is Dan Tavares. We've been partners for over 20 years. Done a lot of different things together. It's a kind of relationship that we know each other. We know how to work best together. We know our strong points and our weak points. And it's no substitute for time. This is Bob Kelleher, another person I've been working with for over 20 years. Bob, I wouldn't even describe him as a consultant. He's what I would call an advisor. Bob is an expert at all things mechanical and all things site or geotech related. Great with their logistics. And what's unique about Bob that you don't get from a consultant, everybody's going to come to you with consultants. That's fine. And we have consultants also that aren't here. What Bob is, Bob actually becomes part of the client. And where this is really unique this time is we're sitting here in the town that he comes from. So he becomes part of the client in towns that we don't come from, but here it's really unique. And what I mean by that is Bob's involved with the concept of the mechanical systems. And mechanical systems, I think, are the #1 complaint in buildings today. When we go back, I was at the Swansea town meeting last night. They spent 20 minutes on an HVAC problem in their police station, and that they have to pay $400,000 to fix it, 7 years later. It's a conceptual flaw. That was there from day one, and now it's only getting worse. How do we attack that? Bob's on board from the very beginning with the concept. The beauty is he doesn't have any skin in the game as the consultant. He's our expert helping us formulate the concept, what kind of system we're going to use, how does it interact with our envelope, and then he reacts to what the consultant presents. So he's basically one of you, only a real expert and a real smart guy. So we feel that's very unique, and he's a great asset for this team. And again, this one's real special because it's right where he lives and works. We also have Michael McEwen. He is our programming consultant, but he's much more than that. He's a police station expert with just about as much as experience as someone could have with police stations. So that's a team we have before you. Like I said, I'm going to be the point man, the one up front, and I have all these guys behind me, plus our other consultants, the normal consultants. So I want to use the time wisely, so I want to cut right to the 4 issues that are at the core of this project and all other projects. Those are the team, which we already talked about, your program, what you need to put in this building, your site, and one that is extremely important in buildings like this, public outreach. I want to spend some time on that. So we already talked about the project team. The program, I'm going to let Michael speak about that a little bit later. I'll just keep going a little bit. I don't want to give it up yet. I want to speak about your site. To me, the site is very special, and you have to pay attention to the site. The site tells you so much. You either work with it or you work against it. It's either your friend or your foe, and it's a very powerful foe. So to me, good design is nothing more than taking the owner's needs, turning that into a program, then fitting their needs to the site. Every program is unique, every site is unique, so every project becomes unique. And that's really what it's about. It's about listening. It's not rocket science. It's more about paying attention and doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. So it's about process, and that's what we're all about. We know what to do, just when to do it. That yields the best building in the end. So I happen to love site planning. I love the big idea, because I feel if you start with a good concept, it carries you all the way through. Everything's easy. It takes away all big engineering challenges. Most engineering challenges on buildings like this are created. They don't have to be in a building this size and a site like that. It's created by a poor decision that gets carried through. I make sure that we're starting with the proper concept. That's what's important to me. That proper concept, again, it carries you right through with ease. So I took this site concept that was in your RFQ. It was prepared by Kelly Engineering. It's a great starting point just to talk about some of your ideas. So I want to take a few minutes. We can actually start your project now. This is how I would start a project. I just want to go over some of your ideas and that I have about this site. And something that I think is pretty unique about this site that you should definitely take advantage of. So as I do on every project, I just sit down and I sketch anything that might affect, that might shape your building or form it. One very obvious thing that you have to work with against is the sun. The sun's very important for a building. The other thing is the topography of the land. There is a slope to this land, about 8%, which is a nice slope to work with. From the school Chase Road, there's a 40-foot elevation difference. And there's about 8% over the area where the police station most likely will go. We don't know yet, but most likely. So we got the slope, the winds. Winds blow in very definite pattern in this area. The ones we want are going to come from the southwest over here. The ones we want to keep out are going to come from the north and the northwest over here. And the northeast, like we had the other day. Those are dangerous because they never leave. They just keep going and going. This one here, we just have a very small amount of wetlands right over here. Don't think it's going to be an issue. So all this is uplands and can be developed. I like the idea of developing the corner, like this scheme shows. And I think something very special about this site is Memorial Park, right over here. So here's your existing police station. Here's the Council on Aging. Here's where I spent half my life, over here, the ball fields. This is Memorial Park right here. I got a little cross here on the Cobra helicopter. But I think it's very important that we make a spatial relationship or spatial play between these two elements. So we can bring that park into our site by siting the building properly and giving it the correct shape. You can see this concept here wouldn't do that very well. But just with some simple thought and a knee-jerk reaction, you know, maybe a building shaped something like this, leaving some kind of entry court that'll pull that park in and address this corner very nicely. It's a very unique and nice park, one you don't see very often or anywhere. We really need to pull that on and make it part of our site. You can see here that we have the mulch operation across the street, but it ends right about where we want to be, which I think is nice. So we can open up to this corner, yet bring a buffer, some kind of evergreen or whatnot, down over here, over to the wetlands. So I think it works out very nice. Coming back, upgrade, we have the school. The school we want a visual buffer from. We're going to get a visual buffer just from elevation separation. We're looking at 20 to 30 feet of separation. And we could put a very effective buffer. If not, maybe just use the natural. But we could also enhance it with some kind of new planting and fencing. There were also some ideas shown in this master plan of a library building. Right here they're showing the Lakeville's footprint. I think it's a great idea, and you can make a pedestrian relationship between the school we're in right now and the library. It was at the town meeting in Swansea last night. The town manager says one of the things he loves to do is look out his window and see the children walking over from school to the library in their direct. So this could be a very nice relationship in the future. So I like the police station down over here on the corner for those reasons. The slope, again, we could use that to our advantage. Maybe to use two levels. One level high, 2 stories on one side and 1 story on the other. How that plays out with the program, we'll develop that by working with you and looking more into the exact details of the site. Because I like more of a face on Memorial Drive than I do Chase Road. So this building would spin and twist until we got that perfect play between the two parks and the building. The sun's going to rise over here in the east, be around here at noon, and then set over here in the west. I really like studying the sun path and the different altitude angles and reflecting it in my building. Bob and I are working together on one now where we are modeling the building for sun. And it's not only to bring light into the building, but also how you can greatly help your mechanical systems by shading properly and then letting the sun in when you want it. So this southern exposure, we could take advantage of it with overhangs, which is nice. We have that direct southern exposure. So we could take advantage of the altitude angle between seasons to shade it in the winter, in the summer, and let the light in the winter. Things like that, just paying attention to the site, and that's my big thing. And it's got to happen at the very beginning. Because once you make certain moves, you have what seems to be an aggressive schedule, things get locked in very quick. And all of a sudden you find yourself reacting to a problem that was created by a poor concept and having to circle back and solve it with some kind of engineering. So my big thing is the site. I like to start with the site. Now, like I said, in good design, to get a building, you're fitting the owner's needs to the site. So I'm going to let Michael come up and talk about programming and as it specifically relates to police station.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say it's a pleasure to be here. Last time I was in this building was 20 years ago. One of the things that we do, I've been doing programming police stations for the last 10 years or so. I've done over 40. We have a questionnaire that we use. I wanted to give you an sample. There are algorithms built into this spreadsheet that, with the proper information, we start off our process again by the questionnaire, getting all the data, hard data, the quantitative data, and then we follow that up with an interview where we talk about each item that you've answered, what that may mean in terms of space needs, and then we build this kind of a document out of it. But in that, you know, every police station is different, and that every town has a different mission for the police department. So this document takes the information from here and adds it to the interview process, and we come up with a program. It needs to be a very comprehensive program. It needs to identify where there might be growth in the future. And again, that's based on you know, the growth of the town, plus the way the mission of the police department has been changing over the time. So we identify that in the concept, putting together the concept design that then will be taken and shaped to marry it with the land. And that's a very good process. We use a very similar process in terms of designing the building on the land. So it does become a very unique building. And there's also, you know, as part of this, it comes out of that, and it will also come out in the design process. And another thing I want to say, that I think his description of you know, listening first before you put anything down on paper is very important in police station design. There are certain things that don't change. A cell is a cell is a cell, but how they all go together, how that works, how it's made most safe, most functional for the town, and how it's built. What kind of materials are used. They have all sorts of implications, not only in cost, but efficiency of the building, and those sorts of things. So I'm very happy to be part of this team, and really looking forward to working again in the town of Freetown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan's role in this project is he'll have a role in project management, and while I design and put things on paper, Dan's going to be in charge of quality control. He's going to review everything along with Michael. Dan, you want to talk about schedule?
Thank you. Again, it's nice to see everyone again. I appreciate the opportunity to be back here. So what we're here to talk about tonight, as Andrew and Michael has already started to talk about, is this is all about process, right? So, you know, we're understanding the site, we're understanding the program. We have to tie all of that into the design and how that actually will translate into a schedule. So the schedule that we have here is a schedule that is actually part of that came out of the RFQ. In terms of a goal of trying to get to a special town meeting sometime in the spring of 2018, which we can do. It is aggressive, as Andy alluded to, but we see this breaking down where the entire month of June would be gathering all this information, the questionnaires, conducting the interviews, starting the programming piece, doing a more thorough and comprehensive site analysis, getting a better understanding of what's going on there, reviewing any material that you actually do have. And then from that a schematic design will evolve. And I hope it's coming through that it's not something that we're designing on our own. It's your town, this is your program, this is your station, this is your committee. And it'll be something that gets evolved where we're translating your goals, your objectives, the things that you're hoping to accomplish with this project through that design process. So that'll all take place during the schematic design process. The schematic design phase will develop a cost estimate, give us a good checkpoint in terms of where we are with the overall project budget, where we are with the construction costs, estimated construction costs, high level. And then that'll lead into the design development phase and construction documents. It seems that from the RFQ, again, you're looking to maybe take this project all the way out through bid, get a hard number, come back to the community for a special town meeting saying, here's what it's going to cost, here's what we need, here's why we need it, and to build on that support. So we can do this. We're going to talk a little bit more about community outreach as well. As Michael has mentioned, they've worked on Castle Booze, and it's no coincidence. I was a former employee at Castle Booze for 11 years, former principal there as well, and the relationship here just makes a lot of sense, you know, in terms of the community aspect, being from the area, as well as bringing Castle Booze on board as part of our team. They will also help with the development of all of these things. They're on the team as landscape architects, as interior designers, and anything else that we may need as we go through this process with them. So, but that's the schedule. You know, we obviously, if we're brought on board, we'll talk a little bit more about, you know, this date right here and what you need to do to get there and what we need to do to help you get there. So just wanted to touch on the schedule a little bit. I think that's good.
So the way I feel about this project is sometimes things just come together. And I feel like this is coming together just right. Sometimes things just feel right, and that's how I feel about this project. I hope you feel the same with this team we've put together. We'd really like to be part of this project. I want to talk to you a little bit about community and community outreach. Community has always been important to me. I think in this day and age of electronics, people traveling all the time, this very inward kind of thinking, community is still important, and that's proven time and time again. And I've always felt that it's a big part of everything. Bob and I are a part of this community. That makes a difference in the job you do for a project. It really does. It makes a difference in the time you put in. It makes a difference in being there. And it makes a huge difference in outreach. Dan and I, coming from Somerset and Swansea, we're just coming off the Swansea Library project. We really felt a piece of that community. We had a successful vote last night. I was able to talk to over 50 people face to face before that meeting. And you wouldn't believe how much misinformation these people have the day before the meeting and what they're really thinking when they're going into the vote. There's no substitute for that face-to-face, knowing the project and really caring about it and pushing for it. That could be the same thing on this project. We could really help on that community outreach because we are part of the community and we do truly care about the product we produce here, and we take a lot of pride in it. I take a lot of pride in that area. For 10 years now, I've been working on those baseball fields. Done everything, switched to plywood, keep the grounds up. It's a beautiful place, and it's part of our community. Tonight, I'm missing a game. We go to the park, everyone comes together. There's nothing better. We open the C-stand. It's just great. That carries through into these projects. You feel passionate about it, and you want what's best for the community, and the rest of our team does also. So I want to stress that. And, all the other things about public outreach, the websites, Facebook, people going out with signs, as you see, community forums, questions and answers, all that comes with it. But there's nothing like being able, like in Swansea, made a list of over 50 people I knew. And I made a point over the week before the vote to get in front of them, to make sure they understood the project. I didn't go there and say, look, I've known you for 50 years, vote for the project. I talked to them, make sure they understood, because sometimes they don't. They don't have the time to pay attention, and they just go in and vote, and they just say, I'm not going to spend money, and that's it. Make sure that all the information gets out. And I think that's the key to the public outreach on that, and we can bring that to this project. That's a unique aspect that we certainly can. So I just feel very good about this relationship. I think that things are lining up perfectly to make it happen. This is all I've ever done, is design and construction. I love it. It's a joy. This would be a labor of love, and I'd be honored to be part of it in my community. Like I came up through the construction side. I worked construction, put myself through college, got my architecture degree. The reason I'm telling you that is that you learn so much from being on the site and the materials and how they go together. When you're designing a building, and I'm talking to you, we might be talking about the Sally Port, but I'm already thinking 10 steps down to maybe how that gets framed or how the HVAC might work. So constantly thinking 4 steps ahead, thinking of that shot that's 20 shots ahead, leaving myself well for that, and that's key. That avoids all those big problems that you have to solve with money and engineering. All these pieces come together to make one unified building with everything just right. And that's what I pride myself on in my buildings. And again, it's not rocket science, it's gathering all the information, program, site, and fitting them together to get the best product. And that's what we do. I think we can open it up to questions. Bob, do you have anything you want to add?
No. Thank you. Start with the committee.
Jack?
Oh, boy. Can you describe an instance on another project where you had a serious problem or an issue, and how you overcame it?
Let me talk to Jenny about that first, anyone else can add in. Honestly, I have not have many major issues. Of course, there's been issues, but none major. I'm a firm believer that if you need somebody on a project that understands the whole project and takes it from beginning to end, all the intent gets carried through. So if you have the correct intentions for the beginning and you can carry it through, you avoid the big problem. The biggest problems I've faced is that when an intention doesn't get carried through. For instance, something's designed one way and someone's trying to do it another on the job, to either save money, make it go faster, or maybe to use a material they already had on the site. So the key to avoiding big problems is starting with that real solid, great concept and carrying it through. The key to making sure problems don't come up when it goes through is communication and talking to the right people at the right time, looking at things when you should. So I'm trying to think of a horror story, Bob.
I can think of one that came up today. It was about 20 years ago, we did a sewer treatment plant for Diocese of Fall River. And somehow the geotechnical report just didn't get done quite correctly. And we got there and there was a massive amount of ledge to the tune of $4 million 20 years ago. And more importantly, the sewer treatment plant needs to ultimately, when the sewage is clarified, to leach into the ground, just like the one at your house. And being on rock isn't a great thing for that. So we come up with a plan to essentially fracture the entire underlying strata. And it's 20 years later, and it's working.
Would a good geotech report
A good geotech and oversight of the geotech, or guidance of the geotech, would have alleviated that whole, which would be early in the planning stage.
There's no substitute for experience to construction and design experience to foresee try to predict any problem that may come up and cover them. Bob's very good at that, by the way. He's a worrywart.
Scrutiny of all the consultants and the design documents, and there's just no substitute. It's common sense.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your consultants through Castle Blues and the relationship that you have with them? So meaning Daedalus, Garcia, Galeska, blah, blah, blah.
That's a good one for Dan.
Okay.
So, all of the consultants that we've listed on our team are firms or individuals that we've worked with for many, many years. So, Garcia Gillespie D'Souza will be providing all of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, technology, security type of consultation with us. I know I've personally been working with GGD for more than 20 years, worked with them at Apponequet, worked with them over at Freetown, Lakeville Middle School. And Castle Blues likewise has done a tremendous amount of work with GGD. Parr Associates is our civil engineer. We've also worked with Parr through the years. I actually learned a lot more about Parr when I was managing the Somerset Berkeley Regional High School project. They were the civil engineers on that project. I liked what they did there. They were the civil engineers as well as the geotech engineer. So, you know, we wanted them to be part of this project as well. Yoder and Tidwell, I know CGA has been working with that structural engineer for quite a few years. And they understand our documents, they understand how we put things together, and I think that also makes a big difference in terms of how we consult. Daedalus, probably one of the best cost estimators, I think, in Massachusetts. Been working with them. I've known Richard for more than 20 years and trust their information. Because they do project management as well as cost estimating, they have a real good sense of real cost of what's really going on out there in terms of the construction industry. And then, of course, with Castle Booze, this just made a lot of sense to bring on experts like Castle Booze, who have been designing police stations for more than 50 years, and the fact that they also have a local connection here. They've also worked in this community and in Lakeville. And so bringing them on board, especially for Michael's expertise as a police station programmer, Dave McKinley with the landscape, and Heidi, the interior designer, this is what they do day in, day out. So we thought bringing that team on board with us and combining our expertise and our experience with theirs just made perfect sense. So,
If I could just add to that, I mean, there was a time, you know, we've been following this project for a while, and I had hoped that we would be able to submit. As it turns out, the production part of our firm is so busy that it was not going to be possible. And I approached Dan about the possibility of working with him if he was going to be presenting a team, because I wanted to work here. Again, I've been following this for a long time. I feel that relationship with both Freetown and Lakeville from way back. And I'm getting close to retirement. So it's, to me, a pleasure to go back to a town, a client in the building, and I'm sure I'll wind up going to the senior center, but hopefully they won't ask me to leave this next time. They wanted to start the bingo, so they didn't want to hear any more about Apponequet when I was there. It's a nice, let's say, denouement to one's career. I mean, I've done a lot of public safety. And just to say something about Garcia Gillespie D'Souza, you know, we've worked with several MEP firms. You know, they always say when two architects get together, or a bunch of architects get together at a cocktail party, the top of the conversation, do you know a good MEP firm? Because Andy was right, that's where most of the problems are. But we have found through the years that the GGD faces the problems. I mean, there are, you know, nowadays, it's not like those old kind of buildings where you could, if you didn't close the door, nothing happens. The systems now are so tightly balanced and hermetic and this and the other thing. It's a much more meticulous set of requirements. Just the other day, I was at the Mass Chiefs Show in Marlborough and ran into one of the commissioners from Cambridge Police Department, which, you know, we did that 10 years ago, I think. And I said, hey, how's the building? And he said, well, we got this problem with HVAC. I said, can I come up and look at it? And we do those kinds of things. And he said, sure, you know, we'll you know, just call and make an appointment. So I did that, but the firm that worked on it has since disappeared. It was taken over, you know, 3 or 4 times, eaten, you know, now their name isn't even part of the final firm. But so I called Carlos D'Souza. I said, Carlos, you know, I got this issue in Cambridge Police, and I don't know, you know, the engineer is gone.
would you mind helping me out? And it turns out, when we went to the meeting, they all know him because he's fixing their problems in the city and other places. So it wound up really working out well, and it's nice to be able to do that. It's nice. We like to say KBA will still be around when warranties are just memories. And I think in this case, what we can contribute is the expertise of, on the police side, us being the advocate of the police department and making sure their program works. We spend the time to do that. It's not just taking numbers from a spreadsheet and plugging them in. It's taking them and sitting down and interpreting them. So I think we have a positive contribution to make to a very dedicated team. So it's a pleasure for us to be here.
Thank you.
Just wanted to add 2 things to that real quick. And I'm not even close to retirement, by the way. Hopefully this will be a relationship that might even carry further than this. On to Yoder Tidwell, Lauren Yoder, one of the best engineers I've ever met. And the reason I like using Yoder Tidwell, which I've used for over 20 years, is you get Lauren. Lauren does every job. And we just have a relationship that is second to none. And, you know, the way, again, he brings the big idea right down to the details, but his big idea is always right on. So we never have these huge problems to solve. So with our team, you get Lauren Yoder, his name. I just want to take one more opportunity to describe the difference between Bob and a consultant, and that's why I think of him more as an advisor. Bob really becomes one of you guys. He's on your team. He's formulating the concept with us and then seeing it through to the end by overseeing the consultant's work. And that's very unique. You won't get a guy like Bob with many other firms. I want you to understand that.
Last night, in the past couple of weeks, we've seen a floor plan for a project in a neighboring community. And many of us have seen some things that we really didn't like. And we spoke to someone yesterday about that. And they were of the opinion that they would be doing what we wanted. So anything we said would go based into the design. I kind of find a little bit of a problem with that, in that I think that the architect should have said, hey, do you really understand what you're doing here? And so my question to you gentlemen would be, in the planning of a floor plan and schematic, would you be more inclined to say, you know, we'll go with what you want because that's what the group is now, or would you think more towards what might work in the future for other people?
Let me start. That's a great question. I kind of touched on it before when I defined my definition of good design is fitting the owner's needs to the site. Good design, you have to understand both of them thoroughly. And that's, before I take pen to paper, I fully understand the program, which Michael said before, through questionnaires and meetings, comes from you. The program comes from you, with his guidance, of course. And the site tells you so much. So every design move I make has a reason. And it's not like, oh, I just saw that in a magazine, or, you know, I did that in Fitchburg, and it worked great. That's not the reason. The reason is, this is what the site is telling us. This is what you told us. Let's bring the two together and make them work in harmony. And you know, all these ideas merge into one and become one great building. It only can happen by listening to you up front, carefully, and paying attention to the site. Good design is timeless. It occurs in many styles. You can have good design in any style. However, there's things that are timeless, like all the things I said before. Water runs downhill. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west, highest at noon. Wind blows from very specific directions. People like certain size spaces to inhabit. Those things are timeless. So the program and the ideas come from you. As professionals, we listen to you, and we use our expertise to fit them to your site. If we don't like your idea, of course we'll tell you, and we'll discuss it. Because sometimes owners have bad ideas, so we can't just say, oh, that's a great idea. Let's throw that in there. So we have to listen to you and fit it to every site and use our expertise. If we apply that philosophy, Charlie, you're going to get a building you love and make sense with the site, and everything will have a meaning. You know, why'd you put that size overhang there? Well, because the sun's at this altitude angle, and we want to shade the window in the hot summer months. That's why. Why did you come in there? Well, that's how we want to get to the Sally Port. Everything has a reason, and it's mapped out from the beginning.
Can I just add something to that? I think you may be talking about two different things. One, it's not a question of going with what the owner wants. We establish what relationships are within the program, and those are sacrosanct. They have to do with safety, you know, getting rid of liability. There's certain relationships that have to be there. And it's my job not just to develop the program, but review the plans as in the different stages to make sure that hasn't been lost. So, you know, the program drives the plan. It drives certain relationships. And the other factor is, of course, the site. And another factor is the style. You know, what is the kind of, you're looking for contextual architecture, something that's going to fit in town. And we always strive for trying to make it, the building look like it's going to be there forever. And sometimes that has been there for a long time. But you can't, so there are suggestions. I think there's much more input from the committee as to what the look of the building should be. But certainly it's the police department, the mission of the police department and the department itself that has to do with what those relationships are within the building. That can't just be, well, let's move the Sally Port to the other side. That would mean flipping the entire building. It's, so I don't know if that confuses you more or.
No, it clears up a little. It clears up a lot of things. The issue was having some experience. I see concepts that I saw in this floor plan that really nice.
I see them all the time.
Why was that? Why is that? You know, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Look at plans and how, my God, how did they come to this? You know, it's.
Well, we got an answer on part of it.
All right, Mary?
Well, not all architects are created equal, right? Either. I don't think there's any doubt about your passion for this and your commitment. But talking about the nuts and bolts, so when you start out and you gather the information from us and then you go back and you develop the schematic and so forth, how much flexibility is there once you have the schematic and you present it to us to go over, and how much planning in making it energy efficient? You know, we have all these beautiful buildings that we keep building and they cost a lot of money to maintain. So that's really, really important that that's taken into consideration, I would think. And what are you going to do? I don't know, Bob's going to, you know, be watching for that or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everything
Before you begin, sorry, you have about 5 minutes left, so.
Okay, I'll be quick. Everything you mentioned is part of good design. I think your question speaks a lot to the envelope. And like I said, to produce a good building, you have to know a lot. Because it's an overlay process. It's a lot of things coming together. And it's not a linear process. You can't create a good building by first drawing the floor plan, then sending it down the line, trying to figure out the structure, send it down the line, trying to figure out the mechanical. You have to gather all your facts, like we've talked about, and then while you're designing, you know all these facts. So you're making decisions that are not only good for the space you're designing, but good for the envelope, the mechanical, the aesthetics, and so on and so forth.
And you have to be involved in that process. You have to be sitting at the table.
And one other thing I wanted to mention, the design of this building is very, very important, not only to the site, but to future buildings that we may have. And so it's very important that it's really not, you know, out of whack and so forth. You know, it's got to blend with the environment and for future planning, because it will be the lead building. You know, it's really important.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
No, because,
it's an overlay process. Now, there's a quote from MacArthur that an imperfect plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. And the way I learned value in that was, you don't take 3 weeks trying to develop what you think is the perfect plan before you meet with the committee. you get your ideas together, you know, get a rough schematic plan, and then get their input as soon as possible so that you can have different iterations and move it along. You know?
It evolves. It's something that, it's a back and forth. It's listening, it's presenting, it's getting more feedback. It's definitely a process that evolves. It's not just coming to you and saying, this is it. It is definitely more of a process that a lot more interaction.
That's
The
what
cake,
yellow
the
trace
cake
is
isn't
about.
baked in their oven. You're part of that.
Yeah, it's iterative process.
That's what the yellow trace is for. We throw it over.
You good? Carlton?
I'm good.
Paul?
I'm good.
Mark?
Wow.
Pomeroy's? And
Um,
Associates?
Do you have a question? I have one.
Yeah, if I could be quick. We talked about the relationship in the joint venture, and it seems to me to work quite well. During the process, you would be the CA on the project as well, or?
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
okay, Andrew?
Absolutely.
What we found, you know, we've worked with Castle Booze a lot, and what we found with one of the many values of Castle Booze is that their understanding of public safety facilities, and it not only goes into the design of it, but during construction and the different aspects of it with the equipment and all of the interactions with the department and the needs of the facility. Can you talk to me a little bit about how, because you have a lot of experience, but very little in public safety. How does the KBA experience shed itself across the project from the beginning to the end?
Well, go ahead, Michael. You want to go? I want to say something about that. One of the things, we haven't really talked about it today, but the specialized equipment, we would be recommending and giving specifications for that equipment to the team, and we would review those submittals. And I had always imagined that not only would I be reviewing the plan, but I'll be walking through the building in a couple of times during the construction to make sure that it looks right to me. You're going to have a lot of people looking at this building, but we all have certain, we're coming from different places, and mine is purely from a functioning, safe police station. I think the other piece of this is that I do have 30 years of experience dealing in public construction. It's something I've been doing actually for more than 30 years, whether it's schools, whether it's police stations, fire stations. And for the 11 years that I was with Castle Booze, as a principal, it was my responsibility to provide quality control from design all the way through construction. We actually developed the training programs that was used company-wide, that's still in place today, that I essentially put together, working with many people as that evolved. And so the quality control aspect doesn't leave. It's still here, it's still part of it. And obviously with Castle Booze on the team will continue to be, they're going to be on this project throughout. It's not just starting with the program, as Michael has said, but we have systems in place as well to address anything from design all the way through construction, being on site. So that's not a concern. It's something that's inbred in me. It's been with me for so many years now. I can't escape public construction. It's with me forever.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So sometimes things just come together. I feel this is one of those times. I hope you feel the same way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
You guys will have 45 minutes, 30 of presentation and 15 of Q&A. We'll go down the line and introduce ourselves. Rick Pomeroy to my left, Pomeroy Associates.
I guess I'm done.
Yeah. Taylor McDonald of Pomeroy Associates.
My name is Jack Healy. I'm the town administrator in Freetown.
Lisa Pacheco, Selectman, and Committee Chair.
Charles Sullivan, Selectman.
Mary Brown, Chairperson of the Historical Commission.
Bill back from the police department.
Carlton Abbott, Chief of Police.
Paul City, just on the committee.
Mark Fonashari, I'm from the police department.
All yours.
All right. My name is Jeff McElravy. I'm a principal with Tecton Architects. It's interesting, I walk in and I see Dan Tavares and I see Michael McCann, and I'm pretty sure you guys might have interviewed Brian Humes earlier. And we all used to work together a long time ago. But you know, some good old friendships, a little bit of, you know, aggravation, tension in there. But what I really want to tell you is what we've been doing differently in our approach to police facility design since a little over a decade ago, that I moved on to Tecton Architects. And, you know, I will tell you, one of the big things that motivated me to move on was to change the way that we were doing business. We're going to talk a little bit about that during the presentation, so I don't want to spoil it all now. Rebecca's telling me, don't do that. All right, so let's look at the next slide. With me today are my team. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I like it better when I do.
I'll begin. My name is Rebecca Hopkins. I work for Tecton Architects. I've been with them for about 4 years now, and I've worked side by side with Jeff since day one.
I'm Sean Martin. I'm a civil engineer and principal of Fuss & O'Neill.
I'm Stephen Melangonis. I'm a project architect with Tecton. I've been working with Jeff on police and fire projects for many, many years, so it's all very exciting.
I'm Derek Brad. I'm with CES. I'm a project manager associate there.
One of the big things that we do is we very carefully and purposefully select our team because we're looking for relationships that last over time, so that the experiences that we have on one project are things that we can learn from and carry over onto future projects. So it's not an accident. This is my team. This is a team that I work with over and over again. And as Steve mentioned, we worked together many, many years ago. And then he's rejoined us over at Tecton and has become an integral part of our team. All right, so there's a bit of public safety experience. This is the Tecton experience we've been working on. Some of your neighbors here, I know you've all the other guys have neighbors around here too. You know, my personal resume is in the proposal, and there's a whole history of other police station projects in there. But you know, we're in the neighborhood, and you know, we care a lot about police facility design. So let me see the next slide. This is the schedule that we put together for your proposal, and this is, you know, the nice task-oriented schedule. But it's not the schedule that we like to talk about during the interview, because we see a little bit bigger, higher-level view of the schedule that matters during our interview process. So let's take a look at that. This is sort of a graphic representation of the schedule, and it's divided into a few different parts. And the first part is over here in the red. This is the part where it's about us understanding you, because there's a lot of information that you know about your department, about your agency, about the way you operate, that we need to know in order to design a good facility to respond to those needs. And so we spend a lot of time up front trying to get to understand you. It's not just the programming exercise of capturing the data, you know, the data about which rooms and what their names are and how many square foot, but understanding how you operate as an agency, how your community thinks about itself and about its relationship with its police department. That is a hugely important aspect. I spent 18 years on the IACP's Community Policing Committee, and so I'm very sensitive to the relationship between the police department and the community. And I look for opportunities to make sure that our architecture, our solutions, are reflective of the community that the facility is going to be in. So there's no cookie cutters. Everything is designed because of your needs. The next phase is you understanding us. As we start to produce documents and ultimately conceptual designs, I know that architects like to speak architectese. That's not English. It's us using our fancy words and all the things we learned in school. And I know that that can be a real problem because we need to, it's so important for you to understand the ideas and the documents that we're putting in front of you. Because in order for you, at some point, everybody's going to say, well, we need a vote to proceed from schematic design to design development. Well, you know, schematic design is 15% of the process. And, you know, we've only done 15% of the design work. And we're asking you to say, yes, we're on board. Let's move forward. No, no, no. We want to make sure that you really get where we're going with the design. And so we want to spend some extra time. It's one of the reasons that I don't count meetings. You know, a lot of firms will put in a fee proposal and they'll say you own this many meetings. I don't count meetings. Because every time I'm with you talking about the project, getting a better understanding of your needs, and you're getting a better understanding of my design, we are moving the project forward. And every time we're moving the project forward, that's good for the project. So we spend a lot of time, and we use a lot of different tools, and we'll talk about them momentarily. The last phase is us together telling the community what we're doing. And that's really important. We want to be your partner in those dialogues with the community. I think if we educate the community, if we have reasons for the choices that we make every step of the way, during the programming, during the design, then we can help explain those to the community, and in that way win their support. because they understand, they believe in what we're doing, and that's how we can get a yes vote when we go to town meeting and then ultimately to the 2.5 override. So, you know, along the way, we do the standard phases. We're going to talk a little more about those as well. But our goal is to get you to that vote and make sure that we're building a new police facility for you.
So like Jeff mentioned, us understanding you, and that really has to do with, there's multiple things that occur during that time. Not only are we going to be programming, but we also want to talk about the wants, the needs, and the budget from day one, and how all of them can be balanced. We look at, you know, the site evaluation and analysis begins. We also do research on what has been communicated or any type of information that we can find on the project and more about your community, and really it begins our dialogue, our process.
I'm desperately trying to stay out of your way. I'm failing horribly.
Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
So some of the tools we use to allow you to understand us, Jeff mentioned that we can all read a floor plan, but not everybody can. We have three-dimensional renderings that we can use. We have even a way for you to put on a headset and be able to spin around three-dimensionally in your space so you can really start to understand what you're getting. The strength, I guess, that comes from that process is that you really know at the end of the day that this solution works for you, for the department, and for the community. You have no question on what that room might feel like or what this layout might be.
And then the next piece of that is, as we get down, and of course you're looking to go back to the town after you've got a price to bid, but the communication part is every bit as important. And you know, I've been around, I've been doing this for a while, and I know all the old school methods of how you get community support. I rely on some of these folk to make sure that we're not missing other opportunities, so go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, so we don't always we do take a traditional approach in whatever you need, and really this is tailored to your needs. There's no, you know, we can do the brochures, we can do the town meeting presentations, we can do all of that, and whatever you guys need us to do, we will be there, and we will be there to communicate exactly what is necessary. But we can also look at different types of marketing. There's different types of groups that you might need to outreach to, that you might need to communicate to. And some of those different groups react to different methods of communication. A senior citizen will react differently than a millennial might. And we'd like to address that in any way we can, and we have tools that allow us to kind of create the best communication method for the town.
All right, real quickly, this is the beginning of the difference here. This process here that I'm showing you on this graph is the traditional way architectural firms go through the process. I'm going to get over here. I don't like to cross in front, but I need everybody to see this. So, you know, we all sit there and we start engaging with you. We leave these guys out. And we start down the process and we do the program, we start doing design, and then Derek calls me up and says, Jeff, I don't have enough room for the mechanical space. So we do one of these, we step back. And then we start moving forward again, and a little bit later, Sean calls me up and says, hey, we need a septic field, and there's nowhere in your site plan where that happens, so we do one of these backwards. And that's the traditional way. I've been with a lot of firms, you know, I've seen a lot of firms work. This is the way you move through the process, where you go forward, you step back, you go forward, you step back. It's not efficient. There's a reason why the ACE industry, the architecture, construction, engineering industry, is one of the least efficient industries out there. Hunting is apparently worse. We just learned that the other day at a conference. Because we don't look at the overall process and think about how do you go through that process and make an efficient process. So we like to do this. You'll notice that this schematic design phase is broader than it was in that previous image. That's part of what I was talking about earlier, spending the time to understand you and to get you to understand us, so that when we get eventually to this point, we're doing a Henry Ford process here. That means it's production line. We've taken all of those big decisions, that heavy lifting that happens in the design process, and we spent time early talking about it and coming to consensus on it. And that way, when we get that back here, it's a production exercise. We're producing the set of documents. Now this is important because every time we go through one of those hiccup backwards, then Derek's electrical engineer throws up his hand and he has to erase stuff and start redrawing. And every time he starts redrawing, his time to the end gets shorter and shorter, and that's when errors get introduced into the set. So by trying to make a linear process, and here's the most important part, by engaging all of these folk right at the beginning, and that's a big part of why we count on the relationships we have, is so we can engage right at the beginning. And you know, Sean's already telling me about what is a community wells versus public wells versus, so we're learning that early on in the process, and we make it a very linear fashion. Okay, I'm going to cross again. So here's your site. Let's talk a few about our observations. Sean, you want to start?
Yeah, you know, when I saw the site, actually, it was one of...
Yes, you better walk over this so we can see it.
Oh. Back over, Jeff.
I'll just leave.
It's not every site that we see that a town selects that is, in my opinion, as good as this one. You see a lot of constrained sites off the bat. And it's not that this site isn't without its challenges, but, you know, thinking about how to carefully plan where the septic system's going to go and how the stormwater management system's going to go. You have wetlands and high groundwater table and potentially constrained soils. However, there's some great opportunity. The location seems to make a lot of sense, particularly the way it's conceptualized with the library and how it's integrated with the school, and it's kind of in a central location. You get some efficiencies there. It's got great sight lines for traffic, and I think it's got a lot of opportunity, but it just has to be carefully planned. And you know, one of the things Jeff talked about is in the process that we're involved in, when we work with Tecton, we're engaged at the beginning of the process, and that's not common to every architect. A lot of times the civil engineer will come in later and say, we've designed the building, we've designed what we want in the package, you go ahead and make it fit on the site. And that's when the problems start to come to the surface, and you have to deal with them. You have to deal with permits. So there's lots of other issues that you run into, and then you end up with time constraints and lots of other problems that put you back into that loop, back into the design loop. And I think in this case, we always want to tackle these problems head on with Jeff in the programming and planning and schematic phase. We want to try and tackle those problems very early on so that we don't have any surprises down the road. So as far as sites go, I like this one. You know, you probably know a lot more than I do about it, but I've seen it, and you know, I think it's got a lot of potential.
So Derek, what do we know about sites like this?
So I'm just about to jump in. So the one thing that's good with this team is, you know, we've worked on numerous sites together like this. You know, we already know the challenges that we're going to have with placement of wells, placement of septic systems. You know, we're going to need to sprinkler this building, so we're most likely going to need a fire protection storage tank, a cistern, along with, you know, some sort of fire pump. So, you know, we've already been down this road again. We're doing it on numerous projects right now in your surrounding community. So we already know the challenges and what we really need to do. So, you know, even coming up here, we already going through our interview process. We were talking about, you know, the other jobs we're working on. And we're like, well, we'll just talk about that in this one because, you know, they're very similar projects and very similar sites like yours.
Yeah, so we talked about whether maybe the existing wells have enough capacity to serve these new buildings. You know, can you save money there? You have to, you know, do you still have capacity? That would be a wonderful way to do this project.
Yeah, we learned a really a good lesson over there in Westport. Another architect had done the study and assigned the budget, and then we inherited the project. It's a nice way of saying it, that they became unhappy. We took over the project, and you know, we're looking at the numbers, and one of the things we noticed right away is that, you know, it's the stock numbers. You know, everybody knows, you know, you're building a police facility in Massachusetts right now. You're talking, you know, somewhere in the $480, $500 a square foot range, and the problem is we're looking at their estimate, and there's no money for a well. There's no money for a septic system. There's no money for a fire protection cistern, and there was no money for they needed a lot of fill material on the site. And so right away you're facing these challenges. All right, how do we make this project move forward, and how do we get it to be a success? So lesson learned. We have the same kind of issue over in Sutton, and in that case we're working with our number, and we feel much better there. Let's see the next slide, please. Sean, you were talking about the wells. There's the well locations, and
right.
You can see that, you know, the interim protection zone sweeps way out into the site. We'll have to do some research and understand where the actual protection zone is and what restraints that may have on us, especially relative to septic system location.
There's some wetlands shown in the green shaded areas up there in the northeast corner of the site as well.
Yeah, we were checking out your wetland earlier. The mosquitoes were checking us out while we were checking out the wetland. All right. So these are the concepts that were prepared for you, and you know, we scratched our head a little bit and realized that you'd taken a Cushnet and Lakeville and plopped them on the site, and we get that. There's some interesting possibilities here. You've got the police station on the corner, and then the library further down, and on the next one, you slide that library over to where that wetland is, that one will take a little bit of work if you pursue it in that direction, understanding what the implication of that DEEP wetland is. But then we started doing a little bit of a brainstorming around. Stephen, this is you.
Would you mind going back 2 slides real quick? Sure. The observations.
Absolutely.
One more. So the things that we started to kind of became apparent to us when we were really looking at the site, we can see some kind of semblance of like some kind of thought for the future, like a master plan for this part of the town. I mean, we know that you got part of the town on the west side and part of the town on the east side, but it seems like that this memorial area is starting to become kind of a town hub now. You already got your elementary school, your youth facilities, you got your youth athletic fields, fire department, you've got a senior center, police department, and then you got some stuff over here which we were going to kind of ignore.
DPW, and then a neighbor.
But if you can go back to that diagram slide. So I started thinking about the 2 different schemes, and what was obvious to us is that this scheme is much, much better because you stay out of the wetlands area, number 1, but also you start to have a dialogue with the other parts of this area. And Memorial Drive, Memorial becomes more of like the center of the town, the epicenter, where you have all the action happening. So we started thinking about connections, between like the Memorial Park and then the police department and then maybe the library. There's starting to be some challenges in all these parts of this Memorial Drive area, and then there's possibility for another site, and then a possibility for another site back here. But we're just kind of thinking about this area as possibly having a lot of potential for something really great down the road. So the police department's building situated on the corner really wants to address the corner. Really wants to have wants to face the community as you approach the site. It wants to be a presence, and also it's a nice gesture with a nice tranquil park across the street. So we're thinking that the entrance would want to be for the police one side, and also across the street, which has another direct link to this driveway to this existing building, which we're not quite sure what you have in mind for the future, and also another opportunity to expand in this way. So trying to kind of separate the police traffic with the public traffic, but also the police department, more importantly, has access, quick access to both roads.
And we see that sort of as, a gateway really to the Memorial Drive. It sits right there in the corner. It should address the corner in both directions. With the Acushnet plan there, you had the building facing Memorial Drive, and then you had the back of house stuff, the parking, the Sallyport, sort of facing, out along Chase Road there. And so if you're coming from east Freetown, then you're going to be looking right at the back of the building. So we want to make sure that we're really creating a presence for both roadways there. And then get the back of the house stuff further back of the house, and maybe a little bit of screening to help shelter the activity that happens back there. Go ahead, Stephen.
I mean, the only other thing we really wanted to show is that the future building really wants to be on this main Memorial Drive, and we don't really want to pay much attention to this this area across the street there. So the focus now becomes the connection between the 2 roads.
And this is something we commonly do. We begin to start diagramming the minute we see the site, and we know nothing about your program and exactly how your department functions. And that's where that dialogue from day 1 is really crucial, because we need to understand, what your concerns are, what are some of the opportunities you want to take advantage of, and that will really start to inform the footprint. Will really start to inform. This was just kind of our first glance, what we thought of the site and what we saw as opportunities and potential challenges.
We don't yet know what the town's considered for the remainder part of the property. There's lots of potential there, and how that all gets assembled is really important at this time.
Yeah. So lots of good opportunity. I think there's some great opportunities for creating some synergy. We really like the relationship between that future library parcel and the play fields and the elementary school. We don't really like the synergy between the other option where the library sits up across from the mulch piles. We were over there today, great big mulch piles today. We saw some dust up in there. I'm not sure that's necessarily the greatest neighbor for the library, but we do see a lot of really great opportunity here.
You're doing okay.
We're doing
20
well.
minutes in.
Nice.
I mean, these guys are right. It's a truly beautiful site. It's really nice. Nice, gentle slope, a lot of trees, nice and quiet, a lot of mosquitoes.
All right, I'm going to have to walk back over here because I think I got the next slide. All right, so this sort of goes back to the thing that I was talking about at the beginning of the show. You know, I really believe in a collaborative approach. You know, for everything that I know, and I used to talk about this. You know, that physicists, they always get their Nobel Prize for work they do when they're young, because they don't know enough to question why at that point. They just go boldly into it. They start figuring something out. They come up with a great theory, and nobody's sitting there saying, "Yeah, but the gravitational constant says it doesn't." Well, that's sort of the way I feel. Like a long time ago, I was young and brash and just came up with ideas and threw them out. And now I know all the rules. I know all the rules about how you make a police facility work. I know the separation of public and private, police and prisoner. I know how you make the security barriers work. I know how we deal with the NFPA 1221 standards if we choose to apply them to your dispatch center. I know all about how you build a police facility, how you do intrinsic ballistic protection by selecting the right materials. All of this stuff I know. And all of that stuff gets in the way of the freedom to say, well, what if? So I like teaming with other folks that aren't inhibited by all of those rules. And the great thing is they come up with a great idea. And the first thing out of the gate is you say, we can't do that, police facility. Well, a long time ago I did, well, not that long ago, a little over 13 years ago, I did a police facility up in Londonderry, New Hampshire. And Vladik Prosil came up with an idea of doing this 2-story lobby with this open balcony upstairs. And of course, my first reaction is, look, you've got secure areas and you've got unsecure areas. You can't do an open balcony. Well, wait a minute. What if instead of challenging the idea, what if we say, how can I do that? Is there a way to solve this and follow all the rules and take advantage of this really great creative idea? And sure enough, when we thought about it and started working through the problem, we found a way to do this great thing. And that really opens up opportunities for architecture. It opens up opportunities for creating great space. And interestingly enough, that facility, which had all this cool effect with the 2-story lobby and the big 2-story glass wall, was one of the cheapest dollar per square foot police facilities I ever designed. It's very cool, and yet it's very cost effective. You know, another part of that process is you get great ideas. My interior designer at this same project came in and said, you know, I want to do cherry doors throughout. I'm like, great, let's do cherry doors throughout. And as she turned to walk out my office door, I said, for every cherry door, I want a hollow metal door. Because at the end of the day, there is a budget. We've got to respect that. We've got to balance our opportunities and our choices and make sure that we're respected. Now, I think that my job now as a manager, project manager, is to be your voice inside my office. So when they come up with great ideas, we applaud. But then we also make sure that they fit your programmatic requirements, that they fit your budget, that they fit your expectations. And so I become the voice of you guys. Everything I learned during that the understanding you phase comes to play in making sure that we stay on track throughout the process. I'm a big, you know, I tell stories, you might have noticed that already. Because I think the experiences that we learn throughout our career are really useful in helping us to look at opportunities in the future. So, you know, the stuff we learned, we're working over in Dighton. And Dighton had the problem of trying to pursue a station that was too small. You know, the cost efficiencies go away when your most expensive space, your dispatch and your prisoner area, outweigh the least expensive spaces. And so they started chasing a project with $1 per square foot cost was insane. Now, you know, there's a whole lot of political processes that go into that. But finally we stepped back and said, let's go back and design a building that fits your needs. It's going to mean a little bit more money than you had originally asked for in the study, but then we're going to end up with something where the cost per square foot comes down. And sure enough, that's the path we're on right now. We expect to put that one out. We'll wrap up the drawings by the end of next month and have that thing out over the summer. And that's important. You know, the things we talked about with wells and septic systems and the cisterns, those all come from those past experiences. But also those past experiences help me when I'm sitting down with the department during that programming exercise. Because I know you do a lot of things in your department that you do because that's the way you do them. My job isn't to tell you how to do them, how you should be doing it, but to give you opportunities from the things that I've experienced over my 30-something years of doing this and say, does that work for you? And then we explore a couple alternatives for how we do it. And then we decide at the end of the day, is the way you're doing it today the right way, or should we be looking at a different solution as we move forward? And you know, I've done police stations all the way up in Presque Isle, Maine, all the way down to Port Orange, Florida. And I will tell you, there's a lot of things that are common, there are also a lot of things that are very unique and specific to your agency. And we want to learn from those things that are common, but we also want to be very cognizant of the things that are different. When I'm in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, and we're processing 30 people at a time, how often do you process 30 people at a time? It's a different solution. And so you can't take somebody else's solution and make it work here. You've got to be cognizant of that. You know, engaging the team. You know, I've had the pleasure of working with Pomeroy Associates in the past, and we very much value the working relationship that we have with them. We very much value the working relationship we have with all of our clients. And we very much value the relationship between every member of our team. There's a few members that aren't here today. Johnson Structural is not here, but they're very good friends. We've been working together a long time. And then, of course, all the other players that support the folks that are here. Those relationships help us to understand where we're going with the design concepts, and that's hugely important. And you know what? I will tell you, this last one here, managing conflicts. Architecture at its best is an imperfect science. You know, there's lots of things that come up during the process. There will be problems. I don't care who you hire. You hire us, you hire somebody, there will be problems that you have to overcome. The question is going into it, do you understand it? Do you have the blinders off? You look ready to look for solutions. You know, I faced North Brookfield, Massachusetts, another story. We had a problem where one of the subcontractors was protesting based on their filed subbid. It was pretty clear to us on the drawings that they were going to lose. It had to do with metal wrapped trim on the exterior of the building. And the subcontractor missed it, they didn't carry it, and so they're fighting it just because, you know, what else are they going to do? They don't have the money in their bid. And, you know, we were facing potentially going to the AG's office and settling the whole thing. And, you know, I said, wait a minute, you know, there's an opportunity here. So I called up the GC and said, look, you know, the committee actually wanted to go with PVC trim at this building. And we settled on the metal wrap trim to meet the budget. I said, I think there's an opportunity for a win-win here. You talk to your subcontractor, and then you think about, you know, what it's worth to you to not have the delay of going through this process. And I'll talk to the committee, and let's find out what it's worth to them to get their PVC trim. Well, lo and behold, everybody jumped on board. We ended up signing a little tiny change order to upgrade to a much better product, and everybody walked out of there a winner. The process moved forward, and we got to a successful conclusion. At the end of the day, we need to realize we all have the same goal. We all want a building built. They don't want to fight us. We don't want to fight them. If we have to, we will. But if we find the common ground, look for that common purpose, then we can work together with any contractor. And I'm very happy to say that, you know, in all the years that I've been doing this, I've found a way to work with the vast majority of contractors. Even one whose project I shut down once. We found a way to work together to get back on the same page. Huh? 2 minutes? Do you want to say this one?
I can.
I get out of breath, you know?
I'm not to spend too much time on this last bit because I know we're running out of time. And we want to leave plenty of time for question and answers. But basically, this is just touching on the fact that we always like to balance design and budget. We have a team-oriented approach, like we have discussed. This helps us determine a lot of things along the process. And we will work with you to analyze the scope, the budget, et cetera, design, and to ensure that this project stays on track for the entire process. And then finally, our closing slide.
All right, so we've got plenty of relevant experience. I hope that, you know, looking at the proposal and seeing the stuff that we presented today and talking about some of the past projects, yeah, the experience matters. But there we go. But it's not just a list. Look, we're not going to do 50 police stations this year. I did that years ago. I did it where we pursued every police station that was out there. I don't work at that pace anymore, because I want to make sure that we're working at a pace that is respectful of the project that we're working on, and it's respectful of the client. So we won't do 50 projects this year or next year or the year after that. We're going to do just a few, and we're going to take the time to do them really well to make sure that we're taking care of our clients' needs and that we're ending up with something at the end of the day that we're all proud of. That's hugely important. I want to be proud of the work that I do at the end of the day. I want to show my kids, say, look what Dad did. Existing relationships, the relationships between this team really matters. I don't just go shopping around for the lowest consultant. I work with people I know and trust who understand the way that we work and who put the same importance on the value of our relationship with the client that I do. Because if I do it and they don't, then I haven't done it. So, you know, I started working with Derek because he took good care of one of my clients. And I said, that's the guy, he's on my team.
That was a long time ago.
Give me the next slide there. Okay, it's not just a process. We rely on those relationships and that common goal of taking care of our clients' needs. And then finally, everybody says on time, on budget. You know what? It's not about cutting costs, it's about increasing value. I worked for the Department of Justice one time, and they do this value engineering exercise. And their value engineering exercise is not just about cutting the dollars. It's about improving the quality, improving the value of the process. And I said, I like that. I'm going to adopt that. What we want to do is we want to manage our budget, but we want to look for opportunities to increase the value. And sometimes that's by great design, and sometimes that's by being restrained with our design. But making sure that we move forward and we have a common goal is really important. So with that, we'd love to answer questions.
Wow, right on time. Mark, we'll start with you.
I'll pass.
Do you have any limits on the number of meetings?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't work that way. It's one of the things that when I came over to Tecton, you know, I had a conversation. I said, as long as the meetings are enhancing our understanding of your needs or your understanding of our design, then meetings are an essential part of the process. I can't tell you how many times I've been to the project, you know, going back years when I was starting out, and you know, the building's under construction, and somebody says, oh, I wish we'd have done it that way. And it's like, if I'd have met with them more, would we have talked about that? And then we would have gotten it right. So today, I don't limit meetings. I want to be here. We want to have the important dialogue that's going to help us get this design right.
And when Jeff says that too, it's not just him, it's also myself and my staff. So, you know, I'm always driving Jeff, I'm always asking him when I can meet with the committees, when can I meet with the chiefs, when can I talk about stuff, because as Jeff said, it helps us in the long run. You know, yeah, I might be going to myself 4, 5, 6 meetings in a row during the beginning of the job, but you know, when you're in the DD and the CD phase and we're in that production clinic, I'll be dropping off drastically, and you won't be seeing as much until the construction comes around again. So
Yeah,
it ends up balancing itself in the long run.
He'll be calling me tomorrow to find out when he can meet with you. I'll be like, we haven't been selected yet. Hey?
Yeah, almost.
Could you talk about your cost estimating compared to the bids that are
Yeah,
received?
sure. We do, you know, we rely on outside cost estimators an awful lot. You know, I've tried to do cost estimates, not the business I do. There are a lot of tools that we can use. In fact, Sutton, Massachusetts, we were just getting ready to go to their town meeting a little over a week ago. And our estimate was coming in on Friday. We were meeting with the committee on Wednesday. And they said, can you bring us something? And I said, well, let me put something together. And so I looked at a lot of the trends that are going on in the marketplace. I looked at a lot of comparable jobs, and I put together a budget. And I presented that to the committee, and that's ultimately the number that they moved forward with. Well, 2 days later, the A.M. Fogarty's cost estimate shows up in my inbox, and it's exactly $100,000 less than mine. That was a good day. That was a good day. But there's so many vagaries out there that we really do rely on outside cost estimators. And you know, one of the dangers is when you get a cost estimate, it's really easy as a designer to want it to tell you what you want it to say, because you want to design the building you drew, you know, build the building you designed. So it's really important for me that we stay kind of high level and look at that estimate and realize that no matter what Pete does at A.M. Fogarty or Evans over at RLB, what they do, there's going to be things where their number may appear to me low, and there are going to be things that their number may appear to be high. And I can micromanage my way into changing their estimate so that it no longer applies to the project. I don't want to do that. So we're very careful in our approach and dialogue about how we level that estimate. Because it is about their objective opinion about what this thing's going to come in on a big day. So we've had some very good results. We've had, you know, I mentioned the Dighton project. You know, our estimates every step of the way reinforce the idea that we needed to be looking at a different solution. We had to go through the process with the community to make sure that we got to that point. We did do an estimate on Wilbraham, Massachusetts. That was bid, what, year and a half ago? Year and a half ago. In that case, that estimate came in, and we got our bids, and we ended up $750,000 less than that. which is a nice problem to have. It happens occasionally. Usually that's market-driven. My guess is right now, if the market continues the way it's going, you won't have that happen right now. You know, we're gonna be working with our estimators to make sure that they're accounting for what's happening in the current market. You know, we saw in Westport only 2 general bids. Middleborough, which is one of the other firm's project, had 3 general bids. And when you see that kind of response of the general bidder, you know the marketplace is kind of busy, and then the numbers are going to go up. So that's something we watch very closely as well. You know, there's lots of different things. We want to make sure that we're creating options along the way too, and so we're looking for how do we package alternates, so that at the end of the day you still have some tools to manage the process. That's an important part of the game as well. Sorry.
You guys kind of touched on Westport a little bit. I
Yeah.
wanted to delve into that a little bit more.
Sure, yeah.
So my understanding was that you kind of handed a project that was in somewhat disarray, that the previous numbers almost derailed it entirely.
Yes, sir.
And you've actually added to it a little bit more by saying that there were actually things that there were other costs, additional costs that weren't even factored into that
That's
original
correct,
inflated
yes.
figure. So how do you possibly attack that, come out with that, with still adding stuff to it, and then you come out in the other end with a figure that the town can work with? How did you pull that
Well,
off?
I will say at the end of the day, the town did elect to get more funds because they wanted all the alternates in the project. But yeah, that's a challenge, and it's always a challenge. But in this kind of marketplace, it's even more of a challenge. You know, you make some hard decisions. We have some hard conversations about what are the things that we can package as alternates. What are the things that we can straightforward value engineer? And it's not the first time I've dealt with it. In North Brookfield, Massachusetts, which I mentioned earlier, another firm had done the study. They went to town meeting. They got the money. The money was actually good. It was the right money for the building. The problem was it wasn't the right money for the site. The site was contaminated. And they had estimated a $50,000 cleanup cost, and the DEP gave them a $50,000 grant. The cleanup costs were $450,000. And we worked very hard with the department to really look hard at the scope and how we put the building together to be as efficient as possible. And then we also worked with our LSP to go back and talk to the state and actually bring more money into the project. At the end of the day, we did not get the state to contribute $450,000. I think we ended up with about maybe $250,000. And then we focused on how do we make smart decisions about putting this building together, satisfying your needs, but being cognizant of the cost. And we ended up bringing that project in on budget. And Chief Demasian, who's now retired, they always do that. They build the build, they retire. There goes my good reference. Was very proud. I will warn you, Chief Earhart out in Brewster, I did his station with another when I was with my other firm, and he was going to retire right afterwards, and he liked the building so much he stayed.
I'm all set. I'm all set.
I'm good.
Could you describe an incident where you had a serious problem and how you dealt with it?
Oh, yeah. Which one do I pick? Let's see. You know, I want to pick one that's fairly recent. So let's talk about the Dighton situation. The Dighton, that's a good project, and it was a serious problem. Another firm had done a study and told them, I forget what the original number was, like $2 million or $1.8 million. And, you know, the town at some point realized that the 1.8 really wasn't inclusive. There were pieces of the program that maybe they thought they were going to get donated, or I don't know what the exact story behind that is. And they realized, you know, that they kind of had an issue here. So we interviewed for the project, and we got it. And we went through an exercise early on, and we talked about, you know, that they needed more money. And quite frankly, the numbers I put out there were, you know, somewhere, you know, north of $3 million. And they weren't comfortable going for $3 million. So they ended up, I think, bringing us up to $2.5 million. And we went through that process of going through design, and you know, we brought the building down. We made a lot of value engineering choices, And we started seeing that what was happening with the budget is that dollar per square foot cost was going through the roof, because all you had left, proportionally, was the expensive square foot. And so, you know, it was going bad. We ran a couple estimates through the process. We even talked to another estimator and had them evaluate the estimate to make sure that, you know, there was nothing wrong with the math. And that the story was, you know, the project was north of $3 million. Ultimately, the project was put out to bid, and sure enough, the numbers came in right about north of $3 million. And so Rebecca was in the car with me. We were driving back from Barnstable, where we were doing some renovation work on their police station. And I said, Rebecca, you may want to just sit in the back of the room, because this is going to be a bloodbath. They're not going to be happy. You know, this is not going to end well. We sat in the room, and it was a very civilized conversation. There were lots of other people from board members and interested parties in the room, and we got into the conversation. And we talked about how the bids came. We talked about the whole process of all the estimates and of all the value engineering, and, you know, how do we move forward. And I think Jim Aguiar, the building official, said, so you mean to say that if we made the building bigger, it would cost less per square foot? And I said, yes, sir, that's exactly what I mean to say. And he turns to the police chief and he says, Chief, does this building, this design satisfy everything you want? And the chief's, well, you know, it's like, it's what we can get. You know, we've only got so much money. It's what we can get. Would we like more? Yeah. I mean, we think that to satisfy the program, we should have more. And so all of a sudden, what I thought was going to be an ugly meeting turned into a different direction. I said, well, could you take a look at, you know, what it would mean to do a larger building? So we did a very quick study, looked at two different sites and a few different options, and put together a program. They went back, they did get more money, something I don't like to do. I'm not a fan of going back to town meeting, because it's hard enough for the town to ask once. It's harder to ask again, and it's even worse when I'm the one that has to go make the presentation. No, make that part I'm kidding about. It's hard to ask again. But in their case, it was the right thing to do. And so they've gotten money. We're putting the project together right now. We expect to have it out on the street. I'm getting our estimate in June to make sure that we're on target. And I think at the end of the day, despite a very difficult road for the community and for us, I think that we're going to end up with the right solution for the police department. And at one point, the OPM asked me, you sure you want to keep going? Because we weren't making a ton of money on that project. And they asked me, you sure you want to keep going? And I said, you know what, I didn't come here. You know, I came here to design a facility for this police department. That's the commitment I made to this police department. I stand by it. I'm going to keep going. We're going to design this facility. And I'm proud. I'm proud of that decision. I'm proud of the process that we went through, even though it was very difficult. It doesn't happen often, but it's hard.
Thank you.
Jeff, you talked a lot about your experience, and I know your staff, you know, has a lot of experience too. And Stephen, and who would be responsible for CA during the process? Would that be Stephen on this?
So that will likely be CA. I never go away. I'm like a bad penny.
Well, that was going to be my question. I know your experience is very valuable, and I guess how valuable would you say it is to have, you know, somebody like yourself with all that experience to be, you know, on the team, you know, day in and day out throughout the entire process?
Oh, it's huge.
Especially designing a police station facility is really what I'm going for.
Yeah, I know. I think that's ultimately when we talk about the collaborative approach that we take. You know, I rely on my team members an awful lot. And I've certainly seen other architects in my years, you know, that they're either control freaks and they do it all themselves and they can't delegate anything. And then I've seen the other ones who are just, you know, sitting there back and coasting. You know, let the young folk do it. No, I think you know, the experience is what I bring to this equation. I'm probably not the most brilliant designer in the world. I do good work. I do nice, competent New England municipal design. I did some nice Virginia ones too. But I work with designers who are brilliant. And when we're working up in Lexington, Massachusetts, I know that what they expect of us from an architecture, especially in the historic, is much greater than I'm capable of bringing, because that's not where I come from. And so I rely on my teammates to do that. And in turn, they rely on me to make sure that we're making a police facility that works, or a fire facility that works. And when we're going through the process, especially during, construction, Steven's working on me on CA on a big project right now, and he does most of the work. But when it gets tricky, then we sit down and we have a conversation. And it's that experience, the years of doing it, it's really key. So I think that's, that balance between all of the youthful energy, the creative ideas, the reliance on my consultants. I expect to be able to rely on them, and then bringing the experience that I do have to the equation. I think that's how you create a winning scenario.
So would you be involved in the programming and then through each of the design meetings moving forward?
Yes, yes. Programming is something I still do myself. I promised Rebecca and Matt, who work with me, that before I retire, I'm going to create this database that we'll use as a programming tool so we capture all of that experience. But for now, I still do the programming because I've been doing it for a very long time. And, I know a lot of the questions to ask to help provide ideas, to provide guidance, but also to hear what you're saying. When you talk about how you go through any particular process, I've heard it before. And so it's not new to me, so I can record that information. So that's really important. During the design, I still design most of the floor plans. I don't design most of the exteriors, but I like doing floor plans.
And just to describe how we work is we all work right next to each other, so it's a constant back and forth. And I think that's one of the strengths of that collaborative approach is we're constantly keeping each other in balance and also questioning. I mean, like Jeff mentioned, police stations aren't necessarily easy to design. You've got a lot of different groups of people that have to interact in very specific ways. And from a programming standpoint, from a layout standpoint, that can create inefficiencies. The first time you lay it out is not going to be the best way. And when you need a second set of eyes to look at it and be like, well, what if you move this here? What if you move that there? And you come up with a much more efficient solution. I mean, getting that circulation to be efficient can have great impact on the cost of the project down the road. So that back and forth and that balance of experience and then that new idea really results in, I think, the best solution.
Great, great. We are just about at time, so I hate to cut you off, but Rick, did you have a question? I
think we've covered everything. Well, what other types of facilities? I know that the Tecton also specializes in other types of architecture, but this team, what other types of facilities does this team get involved with?
Well, here's the cool thing. The firm that I worked at before didn't do a lot of different buildings. They did schools and they did public safety, and that was cool. When I came to Tecton, we do a lot of different building types, and I'll tell you, you can learn so much from watching how other people approach problems. We have a healthcare division, and they focus a lot on well buildings. And we're looking at some of that well building information and applying it to our work. We have manufacturing, we have high tech, we've got corporate, a lot of corporate and education. And there's something to learn from all of that. So our particular group, it is mostly public safety. We have done some corporate work. Especially during the slow times, when there wasn't a lot of municipal work out there. We did, this particular, well, Derek and I did this together. Yep. We did some work for Pitney Bowes Corporation, and I did a corporate headquarters for a company called COCC down in Southington, Connecticut. And I've done some work for Mass Mutual. Rebecca still does some work for Mass Mutual. And again, I think getting exposure to different kinds of architecture, different kinds of environments is very informative when we come back and think about how we approach our police facility designs. And we've changed a few things because of what we learned elsewhere.
And most recently on Sutton, me and Rebecca were at a meeting for Mass Mutual, and they were building, a countertop for the workspace for their employees. And one of the requests from them said, "Hey, can we have USB outlets in our power outlets?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, we can do that. They make those all the time now." We were meeting with the chief for Sutton. He was talking about the same thing. I want a counter. I want to be able to do work there. And I was like, "Do you want USB outlets at the counter?" So we take the other sectors that we work in and we bring it back to the public safety, and it does work out very well sometimes.
You are a Connecticut firm.
Yes,
you do a lot of work in Massachusetts.
Yeah, well, I do, yes.
Yeah, what's very important to us is Chapter 149 experience.
Yep.
and preparing a set of documents that are bulletproof from a filed sub bid and a general bid perspective.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. You know, I've been working in Massachusetts for a very long time. Back at my prior firm, it was one of the founding principles goal to take public safety nationwide. And so we ended up, somehow we skipped Massachusetts and ended up in New Hampshire, but then we came back to Massachusetts. And I worked on the Southbridge, Massachusetts Police Headquarters. That was one of the very first jobs I did in Massachusetts. And that's where I started learning about the Chapter 149 and the filed subbids and all of that. That's 30 years ago now. 30 years. So I've been consistently working in Massachusetts for all that time. My spec writer is very well versed in Massachusetts filed subbids. Jeff Wazinski, one of my partners, he grew up working on public projects in Massachusetts. And then we keep a volume of all of the Massachusetts general laws applicable to construction.
Which we're all constantly looking for.
And so we're constantly sharing that experience and that knowledge with the team, and we've gotten really good. We've had no real protests to speak of as a result of our filed subbid packaging. We've had a great deal of success with it. So yeah, it's not as crazy as the multiple prime states. It's a lot of work, but we're well familiar with it.
Thank you. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll start packing up.
We do have copies of the presentation.